Chapter 1396. Of course. The two looked at each other and smiled. In this 100-herb garden, there was a tacit understanding between them. Cultivators met strangers and helped each other, but there was no need to love each other, because it was better to forget each other in Jianghu. Senior Sister Ruan, this is? A voice broke the peaceful atmosphere. The two of them looked back and saw a man floating over. His long black hair was tied with a headband, and he wore a sky-blue robe that fluttered in the wind. In his right hand was a scroll of poetry, and he looked like a refined and handsome scholar. Ruan Yaoju's smile immediately disappeared, and she returned to her dull expression. Junior Brother Shen, this is Li Qingshan, Junior Brother Li. He just joined Wanxiang sect and will be working in 100-herb garden. Oh, then I'd like to ask for guidance. Shun Yushu's clear eyes swept over the badge on Li Qingshan's chest, and then the many shadows, just entered the sect and already an official disciple. He must be the first in the entrance exam. Junior Brother Li's cultivation is indeed extraordinary, no wonder you can gain Senior Sister Ruan's favor. Li Qingshan immediately felt a subtle hostility, purely from the instinct of a male animal. He thought, it seems that no matter how high one's cultivation is, it is difficult for humans to transcend animal instinct. Eating, drinking, men and women, human desires. Even immortals need to take bait, eat pills, eat spirits, and drink qi. It seems that the way of eating is impossible. The feelings between men and women are also the same. This guy is obviously Ruan Yaoju's pursuer. But Ruan Yaoju obviously did not need a pursuer, and he had no intention of becoming one of her pursuers. Otherwise, he would be a bit embarrassed if she treated him so well. He cupped his hands and said, I still have not asked for Senior Brother Shen's name. Shun Yushu. Shun Yushu bowed slightly in a refined and courteous manner, but that was the courtesy of a superior to a subordinate, the modesty of a noble young master to a village man. The badge on his chest symbolizing the status of an inner disciple shone brightly under the sunlight. Li Qingshan narrowed his eyes. Even though he had no intentions towards Ruan Yaoju, his competitive spirit was aroused. He thought again, forget it, if he is always so competitive, when will he be able to cultivate the Qilin transformation? In any case, Ruan Yaoju is not interested in him, so why should I be jealous? In other words, if Ruan Yaoju was really interested in this Chen Yushu, he might not be able to hold himself back from making a move. He laughed and said, good name, Senior Martial Brother Shen, it's my first time here. Please take care of me in the future. Well said, well said. I'm the one in charge of all the chores in the 100-herb garden. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me. I'll definitely tell you everything I know. Chen Yushu said very generously and turned to Ruan Yaoju to complain, Senior Sister, why did you come to such a messy place? Leave these trivial matters to me. I'll let Junior Apprentice Brother Li take care of the area 15 kilometers around the gold leaf body tree. I'm going to cultivate. Ruan Yaoju only spoke a few words before the 9-colored deer's hind hooves kicked off and flew away, leaving behind Li Qingshan and Shun Yushu to look at each other in dismay. Once Ruan Yaoju left, Chen Yushu's expression immediately became a bit more reserved. Junior Brother Li, have you done similar work before? This job is not as easy as you think. Do you know what I'm thinking? Li Qingshan took out the posture of a phoenix and was even more reserved than him. No. In a split second, the two men were like two male peacocks spreading their tails. Chen Yushu frowned imperceptibly. The Wanxiang sect's middle class was very clear. A mere disciple who had just entered the sect would not be able to defeat him. If it was another place, he could even find a reason to teach him a lesson. However, this was Ruan Yaoju's 100-herb garden. Junior Apprentice Brother Li, the 100-herb garden is the foundation of Wanxiang sect. Every flower and leaf here is the result of Senior Sister Ruan's painstaking efforts. If you don't handle it properly, the consequences will be unthinkable. Some careless disciples not only didn't get any benefits in the 100-herb garden, but instead had many merits deducted and a large number of bookmarks deducted. Some were even punished. They were directly kicked out of Wanxiang sect. Li Qingshan said, please be at ease, Senior Apprentice Brother. I will slowly explore. Chen Yushu laughed. All right then, you can slowly explore it. He turned around and left, thinking, truly a reckless man who doesn't know what's good for him. The work in the 100 Herb Garden is exquisite and complicated. When you make a mistake, let's see how you explain yourself. Senior sister Ruan can't blame me for not warning you. Li Qingshan stood in place and thought for a bit. He shook his head and laughed. He didn't take it to heart and started to look for tools and fertilizer in the storehouse. There were dozens of plants in a 10-li radius around the golden leaf body tree. Each had different characteristics and needed different care. However, with the jade slip Ruan Yaozhu gave him and the spirit turtle's powerful analysis and deduction ability, he didn't find it troublesome. In the lake in the depths of the 100 Herb Garden, there was a secluded cave. Ruan Yaozhu sat on the stone bed and sighed. Junior apprentice brother Chen is becoming more and more unreasonable. Chen Yushu's thoughts were very clear. It was just that he had been carefully concealing it for 100 years and worked very hard. She couldn't act out just because of other people's thoughts. However, as his cultivation got higher and higher these years, gradually approaching the 5th heavenly tribulation, he almost became the housekeeper of the 100 Herb Garden. His thoughts became clear, making her a little unhappy. Not far away, a green vine-hanging basket swayed back and forth. A pair of slender jade legs hung down. Her snow-white skin had gorgeous and elegant patterns. Her calves swayed lightly. Can't be helped. He also cultivates the heavenly book of nature. He can help you save a lot of trouble and focus on cultivation. Pretend you didn't see it. Who told you to be so charming? Ruan Yaozhu felt a little strange. Then why are you so harsh to junior apprentice brother Li? Whether it was the time they knew each other, status, cultivation, or even sincerity, Li Qingshan couldn't be compared to Chen Yushu. The hanging basket suddenly stopped and a young girl jumped down. She was naked and her snow-white body seemed to be shrouded in rainbows. A pair of gentle deer eyes were embedded on her beautiful face. She stared at Ruan Yaozhu and said, "This isn't harsh. He is very dangerous. Believe me, stay away from him. A guy who cultivates the unrestrained heavenly devil path is definitely not a good person." Ruan Yaozhu seemed to not hear it and propped up her chin. If junior apprentice brother Li can cross the 4th heavenly tribulation, with the Qilin bloodline, he might be able to replace junior apprentice brother Chen's position. He is really too annoying right now. Look, what did I say? The 9-colored young girl supported her forehead with her hand and had a helpless expression as if she was looking at her own daughter who was about to be seduced by this bad boy. She put her hands on her waist and righteously said, "If that boy dares to have any disloyal thoughts towards you, immediately drive him out of the 100 Herb Garden. There is no room for discussion." "All right, can you put on some clothes?" "I don't want to." Li Qingshan didn't hurry to get to work. Instead, he strolled in the field. Sometimes he sniffed a flower and sometimes he touched a tree. He was like a tiger patrolling its territory, wanting to leave its scent everywhere. Now that he personally experienced it, he felt the extraordinariness of this 100 Herb Garden even more. Every exotic flower and rare grass had their own living environment, but they were all gathered in this small 100 Herb Garden, thriving together. When he thought about it carefully, it was simply an inconceivable matter. This 100 Herb Garden was simply like a complete life form, and also like the crystallization of the entire nature, extremely perfect and exquisite. In the end, who designed all of this? Spirit Venerable Gui Hai, who was good at deduction, the 2 mysterious sect masters, or the Tianshu elder who was above the 9 heavens? Chen Yushu looked at him from afar and thought that he was at a loss. "Arrogant person, let's see what you can do. Obediently come and beg me." Unknowingly, Li Qingshan arrived in front of a clump of sharp tooth grass. These bone-white slender blades of grass were indeed as sharp as teeth. They were dense and slender like a forest, and they even emitted a strange fragrance. It wasn't the fragrance of flowers, but it instead made him think of the taste of the human heart. It was rich and tempting, and he couldn't help but walk closer. Chen Yushu sneered in his heart. "Idiot, the sharp tooth grass feeds on flesh and blood. Once it gets close, it will suddenly grow and launch an attack. This clump of sharp toothgrass has been planted for tens of thousands of years. Rashly approaching it, even a gold core cultivator's life would be in danger. If you don't know what's good for you, you will suffer. The sharp toothgrass suddenly grew crazily, reaching a length of more than 10 zhong, and they all rushed towards Li Qingshan. However, the sharp toothgrass gently twined around Li Qingshan's body, without the slightest bit of fierceness. Li Qingshan waved his hand, and it slowly shrank back to its original state. Chen Yushu was stunned. What's going on? Chapter 1397. In an instant, the entire world had changed. Originally, in his eyes, those flowers and plants were all the same. It was just that they were a little bigger, and I was a little smaller, you were a little redder, and I was a little greener. Now, even if it was the same species of flowers and trees, because of the length of years, the difference in time, and the color of the petals, there were clear differences. Even if they all had one nose and two eyes, there were still thousands of people with thousands of faces, and there was absolutely no mistake. One could even see their respective temperaments and everything they had experienced from these faces. This was no longer a lonely wilderness, but a bustling human world. The sharp-fanged grass in front of him was like a group of bloodthirsty soldiers, longing for the nourishment of flesh and blood, but now they longed for metal powder to maintain their weapons. The black fir tree not far away was like an old man who had run from the cold to the tropics, troubled by the heat here. And those bright and beautiful three-leafed flame flowers were the exact opposite, complaining that this place was too cold. There was no need to carefully observe or judge according to the Atlas books. When Li Qingshan walked past them, he would hear all kinds of complaints and requests. Li Qingshan curled his lips, so troublesome. With his hands behind his back, he turned around and walked back to the hill, sitting down under the golden-leafed body tree. Shen Yushu laughed in his heart. How is it, you don't know where to start? At the same time, Ruan Yarozhu was also observing him, and couldn't help but worry if he was competent for this job. The nine-colored deer said, "Don't worry, this kid has the Qilin bloodline, the jade slip you gave him, and so many clones, how can he not do it?" Shen Yushu is going to be disappointed. Ruan Yarozhu smiled. Qilin, I have never seen it with my own eyes, but I heard that all living beings will feel close to them, especially beasts, especially deer. So what? We have spirituality precisely to surpass our instinct. Ruan Yarozhu touched her lips and smiled. So you deliberately criticized him a little more to balance this instinct? None of your business. After Li Qingshan investigated the situation of the people, he did not immediately start work. Instead, he continued to comprehend the unfettered heavenly book, inhaling and exhaling the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The nascent soul in his body gradually solidified, becoming more and more like him. With a thought, his nascent soul flew into the small world in his body. In an instant, it was as if heaven and earth had just been born. In this world formed by earth, fire, wind, and water, there was originally only heartless plants. But now, there was an additional little person, who opened his clear eyes and looked up at the sky. His eyes met with Li Qingshan's. At the same time, he saw himself. From this moment on, this world finally had meaning. This change surprised Li Qingshan, and he immediately activated the 9 transformations of demons and gods. With the world as the cradle and heaven and earth as the furnace, he would nurture and train this little person. There was sunshine, rain, and dew. There was also wind, frost, rain, and snow. This little person's heart was mixed with bitterness and joy. He had to be vigilant in times of peace. One had to find joy in bitterness. He grew up alone in this small world. From crawling all over the ground, he gradually grew up, and then he began to learn how to walk. Every day, every moment, there were new changes. Li Qingshan was activating the 9 transformations of demons and gods and the Book of Freedom at the same time. They were originally 2 completely different cultivation systems, but at this moment, there was a surprising compatibility. He used the small world to nourish the nascent soul, and at the same time, he used the nascent soul to feed back to the small world. This was especially true for nascent souls. The benefits they received were simply too great. The small world was already far beyond Li Qingshan's current level, and it had extraordinary power. At this moment, He was using all the accumulation of the 9 transformations of demons and gods to support the cultivation of the Book of Freedom. Coupled with the rich spirit chi in the 100 herb garden, the nascent soul grew at a rapid pace. No matter how strong a nascent soul was, it would always look like a baby, as clear as a newborn, curled up in a mother's belly. Only after going through 4 heavenly tribulations would the nascent soul and soul formation stage change. However, Li Qingshan's nascent soul was really growing, turning into the appearance of a 3 or 4-year-old child. Perhaps it was influenced by the various transformations of demons and gods, or perhaps the Book of Freedom was unusual in the first place. The expression on the child's face changed, as if shrouded in a layer of mist. He stood on the ground with his hands down, as if he had been standing there since ancient times, bearing the sorrow, joy, and anger of all humans. There were no spells in the unfettered heavenly tome, only pure Tao. This Tao was different from the ordinary Tao of cultivation. It was neither a pure heart and few desires, nor was it a supreme forgetfulness of emotions. Instead, it required extreme emotions and desires, to love more deeply, to hate more wildly, to be more furious, and to be more sorrowful than mortals. Love causes life, hate causes death. Anger destroys heaven and earth, sorrow causes the whole world to cry. Because the Dharma understood impermanence, it sought emptiness in all 4 directions. Because it saw the world as a house of fire, as a sea of bitterness, it wanted to transcend, reach the other shore, and save the common people. If someone didn't seek the other shore, but willingly danced in the sea of bitterness, it would be the Tao of the devil. If someone understood impermanence, but didn't seek detachment, compassion, or save the common people, but instead turned into impermanence, mocking the common people, only seeking freedom, it would be the sky demon. The Tao of the sky demon was the Tao of impermanence. After Li Qingshan understood this, his nascent soul grew again, becoming closer to the appearance of a 7 or 8-year-old, becoming more and more stable. Unknowingly, he was completely immersed in cultivation, forgetting the passage of time. In the blink of an eye, 49 days had passed. The responsible field that Ruan Yaozhu gave him was left unattended. Although the 100 herb garden was full of spiritual energy and had its own great circulation, and the exotic flowers and plants had strong vitality, so they wouldn't die, it was inevitable that they would become wilted and sparse. One had to know that even if the growth of spiritual plants slowed down a little, it would be a huge loss, let alone in this kind of situation. Shun Yushu came to report to Ruan Yaozhu several times, wanting to drive Li Qingshan out of the 100 herb garden. Ruan Yaozhu, on the other hand, used the excuse of cultivating in seclusion and refused to see him. The cultivators working in the 100 herb garden discussed spiritedly, the tranquil and peaceful atmosphere was affected, and under Shun Yushu's instigation, some people became even more indignant. They could only cultivate for a while after working hard every day and enjoy some of the benefits of the 100 herb garden. If they wanted to concentrate on cultivating for a while, they would have to ask someone to help look after it, and they would have to return it later. Who would sit under the golden leaf body tree for dozens of days, not doing any work at all. They were prepared to jointly write a petition to drive away this pest, Li Qingshan, after Ruan Yaozhu came out of seclusion. Li Qingshan didn't know that he had already become the target of public criticism, and even if he knew, he wouldn't care. To him, this was just sharpening the knife will not delay the work of cutting firewood. As his nascent soul stabilized, he clearly understood the path of the unfettered heavenly book. Since there were 3,000 great Taos, there were endless spells. The spells derived from the Tao of unfettered included the art of charm, the art of bewitching, the art of flight, the art of transformation, and so on. Learning to use this type of spell would have a very strong effect. And this art of shadow splitting happened to be one of the spells he was most proficient in. In addition to the increase in his cultivation, with a thought, layers upon layers of illusions appeared around him, and they were no longer vague human figures. Not only were they condensed, but their appearances were also clear, very similar to his original body. Their movements were sharp and light, far from what mortals could reach. Chapter 1398. In the middle of the herb garden, there was a small village surrounded by mountains. The pavilions and terraces were extremely elegant, and the small bridges and flowing water added to the scenery. Rather than calling it a village, it was more like a large manor. This was the place where the cultivators of the 100 Herb Garden rested and communicated. Usually, they worked in the fields that they were responsible for. When they were free, they would come here for a small gathering. Under the pavilion, Shen Yushu stood facing the water. Sounds of discussion came from behind him. I wonder what is the background of that Li Qingshan? Why is senior sister Wan so biased towards him? What nonsense are you talking about? Senior sister has always been impartial. How could she be biased? Could senior sister be a descendant of the Bailu country? No matter who he is, this is too much. At the very least, you should entrust a good job before you cultivate. I passed by that place a few days ago and saw that the 3-leafed bright flame flowers were almost wilting. This won't do. We must write a joint petition to kick this brat out. This is for the sake of the 100 Herb Garden. Without exception, these people were all disciples who had just arrived. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the right to talk about another disciple who had just arrived. At this moment, the crowd was enraged and they all requested Shen Yushu to take the lead and drive Li Qingshan out of the 100 Herb Garden. The corners of Chen Yushu's lips slightly rose as he turned around. Junior brothers and junior sisters, please calm down. That Li Qingshan's actions are obvious to everyone. Perhaps he didn't do it on purpose. I believe senior sister Wan will give everyone an explanation. Not everyone is suitable to work in the 100 Herb Garden. Senior brother Shen is too magnanimous. He must have done it on purpose. Senior martial brother Shen is a gentleman, but you're gauging the heart of a lowly person with your own eyes. Senior sister Wan is in seclusion right now, and we don't know when she will come out. We can't let this kid ruin the 100 Herb Garden. Since senior sister Wan is not here, senior brother is in charge of the 100 Herb Garden. Why don't we join hands to take him down now and throw him out of the 100 Herb Garden? Shen Yushu repeatedly waved his hands. I am indebted to all the junior brothers and junior sisters for their kindness. I only stayed in the 100 Herb Garden for a few more days. How could he have crossed the line and done such a thing? Senior martial brother, please don't decline. This was all for the sake of the Herb Garden. When senior sister Wan comes out of seclusion, we'll ask for her forgiveness together. Shen Yushu declined again. This 100 Herb Garden does not allow fights of magic. If he fights back and injures many flowers and trees, what should we do then? Senior brother, you're putting that kid in your eyes too much. If that kid dares to make a move, then it's his fault. Besides, with senior brother's cultivation, dealing with a lucky disciple who has just entered the sect should be a piece of cake. Why would you need to fight? Shen Yushu muttered to himself irresolutely for a long time before letting out a long sigh. All right then. He bowed towards the east 3 times. This one has a duty to fulfill. I ask for senior sister's forgiveness. If there was anything wrong, go ahead and ask for instructions. After waiting for a while, there was no sound. Chen Yushu smiled in his heart. That boy's actions most likely infuriated her. She has always regarded the flowers and plants in this 100 Herb Garden as extremely important. It's just that she didn't want to lose face, so she couldn't do anything about it. Me chasing that brat out might be what she wanted. With a wave of his sleeves, he said, let's go. Junior brothers and sisters, please be my witnesses. The group of people rode the clouds and rode the mist, flying through the air towards the gold leaf body tree. In the evening rain, the gold leaf body tree still shone brilliantly. In the distance, many figures could be seen moving in the forest below the hill. They seemed to be working. So many people. Aren't they doppelgangers? Would I not be able to distinguish between doppelgangers and people? Besides, how could there be so many doppelgangers? Chen Yushu frowned. Could it be that someone had come to help him? But he felt that it wasn't very likely. In this 100 Herb Garden, even the attending disciples didn't dare to disobey his orders, not to mention those study companions and attendants. When he got closer, his eyes suddenly widened. Those figures were actually doppelgangers, but their bodies were too similar to real people, even their faces could be clearly distinguished. The figures were working in the forest, some fertilizing and some watering, working together with tacit understanding. Apart from the doppelgangers, There were actually more than 10 puppets. A red puppet spewed fire from its mouth, watering a cluster of 3-leafed bright flame flowers. The petals unfolded in the flames, without a hint of wilting. The rest of the puppets also had their own functions. They were operated as if they were alive. The cultivators behind were also shocked. They really are doppelgangers. How can he have so many doppelgangers? There are so many puppets. That consumes a lot of spiritual sense, but he can actually control them to such an extent. How did he do it? What cultivation level is he at? Is he really a nascent soul cultivator? If he went through 4 heavenly tribulations, wouldn't he have even more doppelgangers? And look at his work, it's so meticulous. He's practically a veteran among veterans. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like he hasn't done it before. For a moment, all the anger and dissatisfaction turned into indescribable surprise. Chen Yushu frowned, suddenly feeling a great threat. This was no longer just a matter of vying for justice, but also related to his status in the 100 Herb Garden. In these years, there were also many inner disciples who worked in the 100 Herb Garden, but he found ways to push them out. He had the advantage of the heavenly book of nature. Other people, even if they had the same cultivation level, couldn't compete with him. In the end, he discovered that he couldn't get as many benefits here, so he might as well do other work. The contribution bookmarks that the 100 Herb Garden could provide were all given out together by the Myriad Appearance sect, and then distributed by Ron Yaroju, the master of the 100 Herb Garden, according to work. Chen Yushu had obtained a lot of benefits from it over the years. That was why he could increase his cultivation levels so quickly, approaching 5 heavenly tribulations. If it was said that he only had some thoughts about Ron Yaroju, then he would succeed if he couldn't. But this kind of resource was the root of his life that he absolutely couldn't give up. It was directly related to his cultivation path, so he absolutely couldn't let anyone threaten him. Rumble, 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 muffled thunder flashed in the clouds, crushing this part of the sky that wasn't that big. Chen Yushu shouted sternly, "Li Qingshan." Li Qingshan was leisurely lying on the bamboo mat with his arms as a pillow. Hearing this, he didn't get up and lazily said, "What's the matter?" Chen Yushu floated down and walked forward. Changing his usual modest and gentlemanly appearance, he said in a harsh tone, "Do you know your crime? What crime have I committed? You've neglected your duties and slacked off these past few days, isn't that a crime?" The bottom of the hill was full of busy doppelgangers, so these words couldn't help but be a bit strange. Everyone knew that this time, Chen Yushu was really going to turn hostile, so they all kept their mouths shut. If Li Qingshan had continued to slack off, or if he had made a terrible mess and was willing to lower his head and admit defeat, Chen Yushu might have spared him. However, given the current situation, he had made up his mind to chase him out of the 100 Herb Garden no matter what. Li Qingshan smiled. "Are you blind? Ari, this mouth of mine, why is it so disobedient?" Everyone was shocked. The middle class of the Myriad Appearance sect was very clear. Even if they were of the same cultivation level, when a disciple who had just entered the hall saw a disciple who had just entered the hall, they had to bow in greeting, not to mention a disciple whose cultivation level was lower by a large realm. They didn't expect that this Li Qingshan would be so arrogant and bold, cursing as soon as he opened his mouth. Chen Yushu's expression changed, but he suppressed his anger. This matter was a bit over the line, so he had to do it beautifully. He coldly said, "Working hard now, don't you think it's too late?" Li Qingshan picked his ear and lightly blew at it. "What does it have to do with you? Ari, forget it, let it be. As long as it's happy, it's fine." Chen Yushu couldn't bear it anymore and angrily shouted, "Audacious! You, a disciple who has just entered the hall, dare to be rude to a disciple who has just entered the hall. Not only is this dereliction of duty, it's also rebelling against your superiors. Originally, I wanted to drive you out of the 100 Herb Garden, but now, I have to send you to the Punishment Bureau for trial." "I can't go to the Punishment Bureau." Li Qingshan smiled. Leng Yuan didn't like him, so wouldn't he be sending himself to his door? "This isn't up to you." Chen Yushu summoned a 9-segment green bamboo cane, and like a bolt of lightning, he pointed it at the space between Li Qingshan's eyebrows. Li Qingshan lazily got up, and with a casual grab, the 9-segment green bamboo cane fell into his hand. With a forceful thrust, it hit Chen Yushu's chest with a speed faster than before. Chen Yushu flew down the hill, and the sound of bones breaking could be faintly heard. Chen Yushu's eyes widened, his face filled with disbelief. Relying on his higher cultivation level, he thought he could easily take down Li Qingshan, but he didn't expect that it would be like this. Only then did the crowd of cultivators react, and they were all stunned. The one who flew out was senior brother Chen? How is this possible? There is a large realm difference between them, so how come the situation seems to be reversed? Some people also noticed that the hundreds of clones and more than 10 puppets were still working in an orderly manner, not the slightest bit affected. Chapter 1399. Under the golden leaf body tree, Li Qingshan stood upright, looking in all directions. After a period of cultivation, he had completely adapted to the laws of the human world. Even if it was suppressed, power was still power. Human cultivators had never been known for their valiant physiques. If Shen Yushu had used his spells from a distance, perhaps he could still fight, but to actually directly use his bamboo cane to strike, and even underestimate the enemy, he was simply asking to be humiliated. Within 10 steps, he could defeat a country. Even the Hui Long, who had the body of a true dragon, did not dare to underestimate him. Not to mention a stinky gardener who cultivated the natural heavenly book, had a weak physique, and was not good at fighting. Li Qingshan, you dare to attack senior. Shen Yushu soared into the air and pointed his halberd at Li Qingshan. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and green light flowed on his body. In the blink of an eye, his injuries were healed, but his face was still red from shame and anger. Who do you think you are to be my senior? If we were not in Herb Garden, you would already be a dead man. Scram before I get angry. Li Qingshan impatiently waved his hand as if he was shooing away a fly. Good. Today, I will clean up for Herb Garden and Myriad Sec. Yin spirit leaving body, Shen Yushu shouted, and a green shadow appeared behind him. It had the same appearance as him, but it had a trace of majesty and a feeling of floating like an immortal. Human cultivators transforming their nascent souls into deities was the first step on the path of immortals. There was a qualitative difference between them and nascent soul cultivators. He raised his hands and green light condensed. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged, illuminating the drizzling night rain. A green robe floated in the air. It was obvious that he was going to use an amazing spell. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Li Qingshan shook his head. He felt the bamboo cane in his hand tremble and wanted to fly away. He could feel that this was a good magic treasure, but it was not a qualified weapon. At least, it was not born to fight and kill, but more like a tool. He grabbed both ends and bent them. The bamboo cane immediately bent like a bow. It did not break, but it still made waves. What do you want to do? Stop right now. You dared to destroy my magic treasure. I will not let you off. Chen Yushu's complexion changed greatly. This 9-segment green bamboo cane was his natal magic weapon. Not only was it not easy to obtain, but it also cost him a large amount of green jade lots. It had been with him for many years. A small part of the reason why he was able to thrive in the 100 Herb Garden was because of this 9-segment green bamboo cane. If it was broken, not only would he lose his bookmark, but his yin spirit would also be damaged. It might even affect his cultivation. The Tao of Slaughter. It was a fight to the death. Massacring cities and destroying countries, there was nothing he wouldn't do. He didn't even care about his life. Why should I cherish a walking stick? If you don't have the determination to bet your life on it, don't start a fight. Li Qingshan couldn't help but laugh. He didn't care and continued to exert force. Ari, junior brother Li, stop. Ruan Yarozhu walked out from behind the golden leaf body tree and walked past Li Qingshan. He casually took the 9-segment green bamboo cane and tossed it back to Shen Yushu. Shen Yushu felt as if he had been pardoned. Senior sister, you saw it. You don't need to say anything, I saw it all. Ruan Yarozhu didn't look at him and directly interrupted him. She said with an unquestionable tone, disperse. Shen Yushu felt extremely wronged and said, but senior sister, This kid is lazy, rebellious, and rude. How can this kind of person stay in the 100 herb garden? Ruan Yaroju ignored them and only said to the visiting disciples, I hired you to work in the 100 herb garden, not for you to uphold justice. Please do your own things. If something like this happens again, leave the 100 herb garden. Yes, senior sister. Everyone loudly responded, not daring to disobey. This kind of safe, stable, and beneficial job was hard to come by in the entire Myriad Appearance sect. Who would be willing to be expelled from the 100 herb garden? Besides, after seeing Li Qingshan's performance, the injustice in their hearts also disappeared. This proved that Ruan Yaoju's vision was indeed not wrong. Even if they didn't want to admit it, this kind of method was definitely worth several of them. Shun Yushu's intentions were a bit suspicious. Only Shun Yushu's expression fluctuated. He was silent, as if he was very unconvinced. Ruan Yaroju looked over and saw Shun Yushu descending from the sky. He lowered his head and cupped his hands. Yes, senior sister. Li Qingshan looked over Ruan Yaoju's shoulder and saw everyone bowing their heads. She was by no means an astute and powerful person. On the contrary, she was usually too gentle and too wooden. But at this moment, she unexpectedly had a kind of arrogant and imposing manner. After all, in the path of cultivation was the most practical. A human emperor was a cut above others, and a modest and benevolent monarch was still a monarch. Ruan Yaroju waved her hand and everyone dispersed. Li Qingshan smiled and said, thanks. Ruan Yaroju returned to her senses and pursed her lips as she stared at him. Li Qingshan said, are you angry? Sorry, I shouldn't have cultivated for so many days. I didn't think it would take so long in the beginning. Not because of this. Oh, then blame me for hitting that Shun Yushu. But he was the one who made the first move. Li Qingshan raised both of his hands, but I'm still sorry, I shouldn't have caused trouble in your territory. It's also not because of this. Junior brother Shun has a selfish motive, so he wanted to find trouble with you. Even if you didn't make a move, I wouldn't have let him harm a hair on you. Li Qingshan was stunned. Then why? Ruan Yaroju repeated word by word, the path of fighting and killing, you die and I live. Massacring cities and exterminating countries, stopping at nothing. Only now did Li Qingshan understand that her dissatisfaction with him was actually because of one sentence. He thought to himself, women are really troublesome. But who asked this woman to treat me so well? He could only spread his hands, I'm just saying, but this is reality. I can understand that you cultivate the heavenly book of freedom and want to walk the path of freedom. Ruan Yaroju said, but I don't want you to become that kind of person who stops at nothing, or else I will loathe you. Li Qingshan frowned and didn't back down anymore. He looked straight into her eyes. What if I am that kind of person? What if I didn't just say these words, but also did them? I've already said that not everyone is as lucky as you to be able to live a clean and innocent life in this kind of place. Do you know how many battles I went through to be able to stand in front of you? I don't want to deceive you. If you loathe someone like me, feel free to chase me out of the 100 herb garden. But I will still do my best to repay your kindness. He could apologize for anything, as long as the person was worthy of his gentle treatment. However, the existence of Tao must be upheld, no matter who that person was. If someone questioned him with words, he would refute with words. If someone tried to stop him with actions, he would break it with his fists. Ruan Yaroju took half a step back and let out a long sigh. Isn't standing here enough? Of course not. Li Qingshan smiled, dispelling the heavy atmosphere. At least I want to be on equal footing with you, or let you call me senior brother. Ruan Yaroju said angrily, you wish. She then said seriously, I don't know what you have experienced, but I will do my best to persuade you to do good. Even if you are unhappy, I will still say it, because I believe you don't want to be a bad person. Chapter 1400. Li Qingshan was slightly taken aback. Then, he laughed out loud, his laughter echoing in the rain. He was extremely happy. He set off towards beyond the 9 heavens. Along the way, it was not just for a promise, but also for meeting such a cute girl on the way. I'm willing to listen to senior sister's teachings. Ruan Yaroju said, don't laugh. There will be times when you'll be frustrated. Li Qingshan smiled. Since I've come to the human realm, my greatest fortune is meeting you. Even if I'm a little frustrated, I can only endure it. Same to you. Ruan Yaozhu could not help but avert her gaze, avoiding his burning gaze. She looked back at the many clones and puppets plowing in the fields. Maybe I should give you some more work. Li Qingshan clasped his hands. I couldn't ask for more. As a result, his responsible field expanded from a radius of 5 kilometers to a radius of 50 kilometers. It expanded by 25 times, and he was never disturbed again. He did not let Ruan Yaozhu down. With the powerful deduction ability of the spirit turtle transformation and the keen senses of the Qilin transformation, he used the many shadow clones conjured from the heavenly tome of freedom to work hard day and night. Not only did he complete the basic work, but he also did everything he could to stimulate the vitality of all the plants, making them grow more and more vigorous. Another month passed like this. The 100-herb garden entered winter, senior sister. When the first snow fell, the fine snow drifted down and covered the ground. Ruan Yaozhu arrived on the back of a deer. Li Qingshan was cultivating under the golden leaf body tree. He did not feel the flow of time at all. The last time they met seemed like yesterday. In the blink of an eye, he saw Ruan Yaozhu smile again. Ruan Yaozhu looked around and smiled in satisfaction. You've done well. As she said that, she flicked her fingers. The badge on Li Qingshan's chest lit up. He checked with his spiritual sense and was slightly surprised. So many. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. Originally, your reward should be half contribution and half bookmarks, but I made the decision for you and gave you both contributions. There's also an additional reward. Is this in line with the rules? Don't let Le Tien find fault with me and say I cheated. Over a month in the human realm. More than a year had already passed in the 5 continents world. Under the operations of Green Towering Mountain and the Banyan Tree King, a city of novelists was rising. It had already caused a wave in the entire world, and countless people had thrown themselves into this cause. Soon, he would be able to bloom and bear fruit, and then he could openly cheat. What, Le Tien? He's your senior brother. When you see me, you must call me senior sister. Do you understand? Ruan Yaozhu lectured. However, she usually didn't have any majestic aura and still appeared weak and weak. Li Qingshan smiled and said, as the saying goes, there is no father and son in a casino, not to mention brothers and sisters. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head helplessly. Don't worry, using bookmarks to exchange for contribution points, this is a common practice in the sect. There won't be any problems. I'm just worried that you'll be at a disadvantage. The better the 100-herb garden is managed, the better. The more spirit herbs I supply to the sect, the more contribution points and bookmarks I can get from the myriad nature sect. How can I lose out? That's good. Li Qingshan looked at the 9-colored deer strangely, wondering why she didn't interrupt today. The 9-colored deer raised her head proudly and closed her eyes. After what Ruan Yaozhu said that day, she decided not to talk to Li Qingshan anymore, but because of Ruan Yaozhu's unusual appearance when she returned to the cave abode last time, she still wanted to help her master keep an eye on him. Ruan Yaozhu praised, the Book of Freedom is indeed mysterious. He's actually able to create so many clones while cultivating. It's just a small matter, it's not worth mentioning. Li Qingshan sniggered. During this period of time, his heavenly tome of freedom could be described as progressing rapidly. His soul nascence had become more and more stable, and he had comprehended the cloning shadow transformation technique more and more thoroughly at the same time, which was why he had so many shadow clones. However, the Qilin longevity strategy wasn't on the right track as expected, it was still stuck in a bottleneck and couldn't get out. If it continued like this, he wouldn't wait for the Qilin longevity strategy to reach the first level, he would have to go through the tribulation. Ruan Yaozhu smiled. If that's the case, then I'll leave this 50-mile radius to you from now on. Li Qingshan was surprised. You don't want me to work and cultivate at the same time? Ruan Yaozhu shook her head with a smile. Li Qingshan thought for a while and said, give me some time. When I go through the 4th heavenly tribulation, I will have more clones, and then there will be no problem. Ruan Yaozhu shook her head again. No. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. Then I can only refuse. I can't take care of such a big place. My work and cultivation will all be delayed. Ruan Yarozhu looked at his confused and indignant look and found it very interesting. You're too anxious. Why should I be anxious? You're anxious to accumulate contribution points and win the bet. You're anxious to cultivate and improve your cultivation level. It feels like something is forcing you. It's more serious than losing the bet. Shouldn't that be the case? It should be, but you should have heard of more haste, less speed. I only know that 10,000 years is too long, seize every minute. Oh you. Do you know why I didn't care when you didn't care about these precious plants and only focused on cultivation? Do you know why I didn't care? Do you know why there are 4 seasons in this herb garden? These 2 questions seemed simple, but Li Qingshan thought for a while and couldn't answer them. Even if Ruan Yarozhu was on his side, she could still wake him up or arrange for someone else to help him take care of these plants. Most plants liked the height of summer and would stop growing once winter came. With the mysterious spells of the nature sect, they could completely keep this place in summer. Winter seemed very unnecessary. Didn't we set up this herb garden to cultivate rare plants and provide resources for the sect? Is there any other purpose? Ruan Yarozhu reached out and caught a sparkling snowflake. She said with a smile, "That's what you say, but you can't think about it." Li Qingshan said, "Senior Marshal Sister, don't keep me in suspense. Senior Marshal Sister's long-winded speech will only annoy you. Junior Marshal Brother, I'm all ears." The 9-colored deer suddenly coughed twice. Ruan Yarozhu said, "You have the Chilean bloodline, so you can feel the heart of the plants and understand their needs. You use water and fertilizer to the extreme, and control it to the slightest degree. What's wrong with that? All living beings, born in this world, must experience hardships in order to grow strong. There must be sunlight, rain, and dew, as well as snow and drought. Plants are intelligent, but they are ignorant and heartless. Besides, even humans, who are the most intelligent of all living beings, if you gave them whatever they wanted, what would they become? Hair, at least they'd be fat. When you don't care about them and only care about cultivation, these plants will wither a bit, but in order to obtain nutrients, they will take root even deeper. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, so I don't care. Instead, I'm afraid that you're taking care of them too meticulously, so I increased your workload. I didn't think you could do this." Li Qingshan sighed. "I didn't think that taking care of them too meticulously would also be a problem." Ruan Yarozhu smiled and comforted him. "If it were someone else, I would advise them to take care of these plants carefully, because no matter how meticulous they are, they won't be able to reach your level. But you can do better. Cultivation is the same. It's good to advance bravely, but you can't be too hasty. More haste, less speed. If you're too impatient for results and want to do everything, you won't be able to reach your goal. In more practical terms, even if it's just to use their fruits and leaves to refine pills, it'll be most effective if they grow slowly. Let nature take its course." A light flashed in Li Qingshan's mind, as if it was the first ray of light that pierced through the dark night. He muttered to himself, "Let nature take its course, let nature take its course. I understand." He finally understood why his Chilean strategy of longevity had always been stagnant. It wasn't because he was too evil, but because he was too impatient. All along, he had adhered to the words "advance bravely," advancing without fear of hardships and dangers. This spirit had long since fused into his blood, becoming a kind of instinct. The bottleneck of cultivating the Chilean strategy of longevity stemmed from this belief. However, the Chilean transformation was different from other transformations. It wasn't that he wasn't diligent enough. On the contrary, he was too diligent and spent too much energy. If there was a common characteristic among the rare flowers and plants in the 100 Herb Garden, it would be that they grew very slowly. Some spiritual trees didn't even change after more than 10 years. However, he was too impatient. Thus, he did good deeds and accumulated virtue just to be in line with the Chilean's path. Thus, he cultivated diligently, wishing that he could devote all his energy. It was like planting a seed that didn't germinate, so he watered it more and applied more fertilizer. He even couldn't help but dig it up to see if there was a problem with the seed. In the end, Things didn't go as he wished. The seed didn't have a problem, but he had a problem. He once heard a story about a hunchback with the surname of Guer who was very good at planting trees. There was never a tree that didn't grow well, and it was very lush. Others couldn't learn it. When someone asked him, he said, "I can't make the tree grow quickly or live long. I'm just following the nature of the tree. I can make the roots stretch out, make the soil firm, and so on." Once the tree was planted, there was no need to care too much and let the tree grow naturally. Others were either too careless or too worried. They would look at the tree in the morning and touch it at night. They would even shake it to see if the roots were deep. If they peeled the bark to see if the tree had dried up, they would kill the tree instead. The Chilean takes pity on the common people. Originally, as long as one had a benevolent heart, he would have the foundation to cultivate the Chilean strategy of longevity. However, he could never become a good person. It was inevitable that he would fall into a dilemma. The more he wanted to be in line with the Chilean's path, the more he would deviate from the Chilean's path. The Chilean's path didn't lie in being benevolent and kind, but in letting nature take its course. It was like the growth of plants and trees, withering and flourishing with each passing year. As long as he didn't completely abandon his benevolent heart, the Chilean transformation would grow like a big tree. Killing intent and evil thoughts were just necessary to go through wind, frost, rain, and snow. It wasn't possible, and it didn't need to be. Chapter 1401. Ruon Yarozhu tilted her head slightly and looked at Li Qingshan strangely. She didn't know why her words would cause such a strong reaction from him. Her long-winded speech was actually not very popular. The other true disciples had their own Tao and did not listen to her. For a gambler like Letienne, it would be useless even if she spoke for 1,000 years. As for those disciples who had entered the inner chamber, although they did not dare to disobey, they were afraid of her identity and status. On the surface, they flattered her, but in their hearts, they did not think much of it. That was why she told Li Qingshan in the beginning, "There will be times when you will be upset." She didn't expect that it would have such a good effect. She couldn't help but feel a little proud and subconsciously stroke her hair. The nine-colored deer understood her the best and was extremely vigilant. "Not good, this brat is too good at stirring up trouble. Soft blockhead likes this kind of thing, bastard." He was so resolute just now, but in the blink of an eye, he seems to have gained enlightenment. Why don't I think these words are useful? Yes, he must be pretending. Li Qingshan closed his eyes and let out a long sigh. His whole body relaxed. The speed at which he operated the Chilean's longevity strategy was much slower, but it was more natural and peaceful. It was like the flowers and trees after the rain, looking brand new. The obvious change made even the nine-colored deer raise his eyebrows. He thought, "This acting is too good." Looking at Ruon Yarozhu again, the smile on her face was even brighter, looking at him with eyes as warm as the spring breeze in March. Just like how men had the desire to save those who had lost their footing, women had the desire to tame ferocious beasts. The gentle young man could at most be a first-class spare tire, while the overbearing CEO was the eternal male god. Li Qingshan, the wild and untamed beast, seemed to have unwittingly catered to her mood, and her affection for him increased by leaps and bounds. On the contrary, he didn't think much of it. He insisted on his own path and wasn't stubbornly going his own way. If it was Ruon Yarozhu's method, it would allow him to take care of more land, obtain more contribution points, and improve his cultivation. But he still insisted on doing things his own way. That wasn't persistence, it was stupidity. But because of the special characteristics of the Chilean transformation, naturally, it was impossible for him to be enlightened and immediately ascend. However, he believed that after wandering for a long time, he had already found the right path. He then opened his eyes and cupped his hands in obeisance. "Thank you for your guidance, senior martial sister. To me, these words are more valuable than a heavenly book." Ruon Yarozhu accepted it calmly. Her beautiful eyes narrowed into a smile. "No matter how powerful you are, when it comes to planting trees and flowers, I'm still the one who knows better. Now you understand." Nine-colored deer thought, not good, Softwood actually said such immodest words, he must be very proud of himself. This kid really does cultivate the sky demon path. I should have asked you for guidance the first time we met. Li Qingshan sighed emotionally. That way, he could have saved 2 to 3 months of time. Perhaps he would have already transcended the 4th heavenly tribulation by now. Look, you're getting anxious again. You're afraid that I'll deal with you the first time we meet. Why would he ask me for guidance? And I don't know who you are. Why would I talk to you like this? Let nature take its course, and that's how I've come to this realization today. That makes sense. Li Qingshan nodded. Going with the flow of nature was indeed his biggest blind spot. This was because he had always relied on the stubbornness of the ox demon, the frenzy of the tiger demon, and the freedom of the ape demon to get to where he was today. He also had the noble heart of a phoenix that soared to the heavens and didn't fall to the mortal world. Although the spirit tortoise was quiet, it had a myriad of thoughts in a single thought, and it was inevitable that it would run out of tricks. Everything was for the sake of becoming stronger and faster. He wholeheartedly wanted to defy the heavens and change his fate. If not for Ruan Yaozhu's enlightenment, he might have needed a long time to comprehend it, and he had always helped her. He was indeed very grateful. Also, I'm indeed luckier than most people. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. I almost died during my first heavenly tribulation. Really? Li Qingshan was shocked. The first heavenly tribulation should have been the easiest. With her talent, there was actually a problem. At that time, I was just a servant. I didn't know anything, and I just wanted to go home. Haha, that's really interesting. Only now did Li Qingshan know that she had been forcibly kidnapped to the myriad phenomenon sect. She had left her home and parents, and suddenly turned from a princess to a servant. He really didn't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. She had a gentle temperament and liked to meddle in other people's business, so she had suffered a lot. She was regarded as naive and ignorant by her companions, and they even repaid her kindness with enmity for small benefits. All of these made her heart full of pain. In order to go home, she had rushed to undergo the heavenly tribulation, but in the end, she failed and almost died. Every human emperor had their own legend. No one's journey was really smooth sailing. Luck could explain everything. Even at such a realm, there were still many trials and tribulations. The snow was getting heavier and heavier. It rustled down and covered the body tree. The cheerful laughter became clearer and warmer. The atmosphere under the tree was filled with a happy atmosphere. Master, we should go back. The 9-colored deer's coughs were ignored several times. Finally, it couldn't help but interrupt. The word master was a very serious reminder. Ruan Yaozhu finally came to her senses. She couldn't help but blush. She only said softly, "I'm leaving," and left in a hurry. Li Qingshan watched as her figure vanished into the snow. He felt rather unsatisfied, as well as rather melancholic. After standing for a while, he scratched his chest. He took out his wine gourd and drank a few mouthfuls. Then, he threw this thought to the back of his mind. He still had a lot of work to do. A radius of 50 kilometers was a very large area. He didn't know if his shadow clone could reach that far. He had to improve his heavenly book of freedom and fractal shadowization technique. He also had to think carefully about what he should do next. Let nature take its course definitely didn't mean not doing or thinking about anything. It was just following the laws of nature. Although more haste, less speed, it was even more impossible to do it if he stood still. The key was to be just right. If he managed this land well, he would have a very stable source of contribution points. As his cultivation increased, it might not be any less than cheating from Spirit Venerable Gui Hai. In a cave abode in a distant mountain, the 9-colored deer, who had taken on the appearance of a young girl, grabbed Ruan Yaozhu's delicate shoulder and shook it. "You must chase him out. You must chase him out. Do you hear me? He didn't do anything wrong." Ruan Yaozhu shook her head helplessly. "Ju I beg you, stop shaking me. That's why it's scary. You should really see your expression just now." Ruan Yaozhu felt a little embarrassed. "I just can't accept it. He keeps saying that I'm too lucky." The 9-colored deer said, "He's not the only one who thinks so. Who have you explained so much to? Believe me, This is your predestined fate. Li Qingshan would never have imagined that he would receive such an evaluation. However, if he really heard it, he probably wouldn't feel any desire. It wasn't like he had never done such a thing before. Not long ago, he transformed into a predestined fate and dragged Chuo Long down from the throne. Chapter 1402. She leaped into the air and turned into a white deer, running out of the cave. I won't allow it. Ruan Yaozhu raised her hand. Vines danced in the air and blocked the entrance of the cave. Thousands of leaves and flowers bloomed. The 9-colored deer looked back. Do you know how many years it's been since you've been so angry? Soft wood, where's your let nature take its course? Ruan Yaozhu's expression changed. Things didn't always go her way. She was already used to the greed and evil of people. Although she was still nagging and meddling, she no longer hoped to change anyone. She would rather retreat to the herb garden and let nature take its course. If Letian wanted to gamble, then let him gamble. If the white deer country should be destroyed, then so be it. However, Li Qingshan could be changed. Although he was stubborn in his Tao, he wasn't stubborn. After going through so much hardship to get here, he still had a kind heart. Now that he could finally find some peace in the herb garden, how could he just abandon it? She didn't think it was love, but when she thought of his shocked and disappointed expression, she couldn't bear to do such a thing. Jua, this is my own business. Ruan Yaozhu, how dare you say that? I'm so angry. Stop me if you can. I swear I won't rest until I chase that kid out of the herb garden. The 9-colored deer waved its beautiful antlers. Thousands of flowers withered, leaves fell, and vines cracked. All right, don't be angry. Ruan Yaozhu walked up and gently stroked her neck. I know you're doing this for my own good, she comforted. If I die, it's because my Tao heart isn't strong enough. I can't blame others. She spun around on the spot, her green dress fluttering in the wind. She smiled and said, Am I that fickle that you don't trust me? How about we make a bet? The 9-colored deer asked. There seem to be too many bets recently. You know I don't gamble, Ruan Yaozhu said helplessly. All right, what do you want to bet? Bet on whether that kid will leave the herb garden, the 9-colored deer said. Li Qingshan was in an extremely good mood right now. After comprehending the Chilean's path, he had broken through the bottleneck immediately. All he needed to do next was follow the prescribed order. At the same time, he prepared to manage the responsible field that spanned 50 kilometers. There was a familiar cough. The 9-colored deer stepped through the wind and snow, leisurely walking over. Hey, why are you here again? Where is senior sister Ruan? The 9-colored deer said in a reserved manner, she is cultivating in the cave abode. I came here secretly because I have something to tell you. What is it? Li Qingshan looked her up and down. Could it be that she had fallen for him? He wondered what he would look like if he transformed into a human. The 9-colored deer was annoyed by his stare. I hope you can stay away from her, Li Qingshan thought to himself. What a familiar dialogue. He seemed to have heard it somewhere before. He smiled and said, Isn't it far enough now? I want you to leave the 100 herb garden. Why? Li Qingshan asked curiously. He was just chatting with Ruan Yaozhu, but this damned deer seemed to dislike him. Because you disturbed the order of the 100 herb garden. It's not a good influence. That's not very fair. It was clearly someone else who came to find trouble with me. Moreover, when I cross the 4th heavenly tribulation, I will naturally bestow a new order here. Li Qingshan's face was full of confidence. The 9-colored deer couldn't help but believe him, but he deliberately said disdainfully, a new order, what a big tone. Li Qingshan spread his arms. When I cross the 4th heavenly tribulation, I will have 10 times the number of clones and will have a clearer understanding of the way of nature. At that time, you can drive that brat Shen Yushu out. The 9-colored deer was somewhat speechless. If someone else said this, it could be regarded as arrogance. But he seemed to really be able to do it. He said impatiently, Let's put it this way, I don't want her to be too close to men. Li Qingshan was startled and took half a step back. You have that kind of relationship? Could it be, everyone has a lily in their heart? Thinking of what Ruan Yarozhu said, when she was at her most difficult, it was thanks to the 9-colored deer's support. This didn't seem strange, but he felt that it was too much of a pity. As his voice fell, he felt a sharp pain in his foot. The deer's hooves were ruthlessly grinding on his foot. The 9-colored deer gritted his teeth and said, "What nonsense are you talking about?" There was a burst of laughter in the 100-grass immortal's cave. Ruan Yarozhu happily watched the 9-colored deer suffer a setback and felt a burst of warmth. Everything she did was for her. They had accompanied each other for 1,000 years, sharing weal and woe, going through life and death together. It was much closer than that kind of relationship. Li Qingshan looked at his feet and spread out his hands. "I'm the one who is baffled. I'm obviously doing well and helping senior sister Ruan, so why do you suddenly want me to leave? Is this your idea or senior sister Ruan's?" The 9-colored deer slowly withdrew its hooves. "All right, I'll be straightforward. Yarozhu doesn't know that this is my idea." Li Qingshan said angrily, "What exactly do you not like about me? I have a little Chilean bloodline and helped you win a lot of green jade lots. Even if you don't want to be friends with me, you don't have to be so hostile. To be honest, you're very good, and I don't hate you. Just because you helped us win those green jade lots, I should give you some benefits. But Yarozhu is at the critical moment of becoming a human immortal, and I don't want anyone or anything to disturb her and distract her. She's very gentle to everyone, and because you're very good, she's especially gentle to you. I don't think there's anything between you two, but even if there's only 1 in 10,000 danger, I'll try my best to avoid it. Do you understand? How about this? I won't let you suffer for nothing. If you're willing to leave, I'll give you 100 green jade lots as compensation." Li Qingshan was silent for a moment. He walked back and forth under the tree with his hands clasped behind his back. Suddenly, he said, "You're right. I have to leave, but I won't take the bookmarks. You don't owe me anything, so you don't need to compensate me. Otherwise, this plot was too familiar. It was simply the rhythm of 'I'll give you 1 million to leave my daughter.' You agree?" The 9-colored deer was surprised. It thought he would at least ask to see Ruan Yarozhu, but it didn't expect him to agree so readily. "Ian, I'll go and ask for senior sister Ruan's resignation." "No, it's better not to see her. I'll write a resignation letter, and you can take it to her for me," Li Qingshan said and began to look for a pen and paper. He didn't hesitate to leave. The 9-colored deer blinked its eyes in confusion. Things were going so smoothly that it felt unreal. Chapter 1403. Her bet with Ruan Yarozhu was a bet on whether or not she could persuade him to leave 100 Herb Garden. If she couldn't persuade him, it would prove that he had other thoughts like Shen Yushu, just that they were hidden very deeply. Moreover, he was much more dangerous than Shen Yushu. Even if it was just to be safe, she had to drive him out. In other words, if he was willing to leave, he could stay. If he wasn't willing to leave, he would be driven away. Ruan Yarozhu couldn't argue with her and could only agree. Otherwise, if she lost her temper, Li Qingshan would absolutely not be able to stay. Now that she heard him agree to leave so readily, her smile became even brighter. But it was a bit strange. She saw Li Qingshan hastily write his resignation letter and immediately start handing over work as if he was escaping. She also felt a bit disappointed and frustrated. Could it be that he really didn't have a trace of reluctance to leave? The 9-colored deer looked at the letter of resignation. It didn't have the slightest bit of resentment. Instead, it said that it suddenly had an important matter and had no choice but to leave 100 Herb Garden. It very sincerely asked for Ruan Yarozhu's forgiveness. There was simply no fault to be found. "This. You don't need to be so anxious." She suddenly realized that she had done a stupid thing. If she wanted to drive Li Qingshan out, she had to persuade Li Qingshan to stay. She was so conflicted that she wanted to hit her head against a tree. "No, I'll leave immediately." 9-colored deer was filled with unwillingness as she probed, "You don't want to see her again and say goodbye in person? Maybe she will persuade you to stay." Li Qingshan sighed and waved his hand. "No, absolutely not. I'm afraid we won't see each other again." Ruan Yarozhu's expression darkened and she felt wronged, Even if I really can't keep you in 100 Herb Garden, I have never let you down. Why do I have to say such resolute word? Nine-colored deer was happy and thought that his plan worked. As long as Ruan Yaoju hated him, the bet was secondary. He pretended to sigh, as expected. You are very dissatisfied, but this is also human nature. You have just settled down and have such a good cultivation treasure land. Anyone would be dissatisfied if they were to be forced to leave. Shun Yushu cultivated nature heavenly book and worked in 100 Herb Garden for hundreds of years, which was of great help to Ruan Yaoju. But don't worry, I will also invite him out in the future. But he deliberately used Shun Yushu to provoke Li Qingshan, thinking, hey, kid, you too have caused a ruckus. He can stay, but you want to leave. Let me ask you, are you convinced? If you're not convinced, then stay. It turns out that Shun Yushu also cultivates the nature heavenly book. No wonder his aura is somewhat similar to senior sister Ruan's. However, I think it's better to let him stay in the 100 Herb Garden. What? The nine-colored deer simply doubted whether or not he had heard wrongly. Was this still the Li Qingshan who taught Shun Yushu a lesson without saying a word? Li Qingshan smiled and said, don't worry. I'm not so narrow-minded, and senior sister Ruan treats me even better. Instead, I have to thank you. Thank me for what? Thank you for reminding me, otherwise it would have affected senior sister Ruan's cultivation. Then it would be too late for regrets. The nine-colored deer was somewhat moved. Then why do you want Shun Yushu to stay? Because you misjudged some probability. That guy Shun Yushu isn't even 1 in 100 million danger to senior sister Ruan. The 100 Herb Garden still has to be managed properly, so it's better to keep him. And the danger I pose to her is more than 1 in 10,000. Li Qingshan flung his bangs and couldn't help but sigh. Even if I don't have any improper thoughts, too much charm is also a crime. A loud bang accompanied by the sound of bones cracking, the ground collapsed and cracked. Li Qingshan was surprised. Why did you step on me again? I don't know, I couldn't help it. The nine-colored deer squeezed out these words from between his teeth. He had never seen such a shameless person. Where did this stupid self-confidence come from? In the 100 Herb Cave, Ruan Yaoju was shaking with laughter. What was going on? Li Qingshan waved his hand. Take off your hoof. I'm leaving. You don't have to leave. The nine-colored deer said through gritted teeth. Facing such a lunatic, it was impossible for her to win this bet. I have to go. Li Qingshan said resolutely, forcibly pulling his foot back. He had always been a person who would repay a favor of a meal, and take revenge for a grudge. Ruan Yaoju's kindness to him was more than just a meal. Although she had always been dissolute, he was indebted to others. He absolutely could not harm the cultivation of others. This was where his principle lay. Go go go, please leave quickly. The nine-colored deer turned his head, feeling that he was about to be driven crazy by him. Okay, Ju you lost, don't be angry anymore. Ruan Yaoju appeared under the tree and explained the whole story, saying apologetically, I'm sorry, I made a bet with you again. Ju was too worried about me and was too careful. This was the only way to prove to her that you are not that kind of person. No, she is right. This is my problem. Li Qingshan clasped his hands. Senior sister Ruan, I'll remember your kindness. The mountains will never change, and the rivers will always flow. I'll definitely return the favor in the future. Ruan Yaoju smiled bitterly. Please stay. I, your senior sister, will never have any improper thoughts about you. Really? Really? Ruan Yaoju was both angry and amused. Li Qingshan let out a sigh of relief. Then I can rest assured. He was still a little worried. If you need me to leave one day, just say the word. I won't say that. I hope you won't say things like we won't meet again. It makes me feel sad. Ruan Yaoju said sincerely. Although his blind confidence made things very strange, his intentions were definitely not fake. He would rather give up a cultivation treasure like the 100 Herb Garden and ignore the bet with Letienne than threaten her in the slightest. Ari, I don't feel good in my heart either. Forget it, even if I stay in the 100 Herb Garden, try not to see me as much as possible. Chimph, I come whenever I want. Is this my territory or your territory? Ruan Yaozhu pouted, understanding Zhu feelings. These words were too infuriating. It was as if she couldn't help but give herself to him just because she came to see him a few times. I'm doing this for your own good. Actually, I have a lot of women. If you say that again, I'm really going to get angry. Ruan Yaozhu interrupted him and narrowed her eyes. She still had a bit of self-respect. Since she was young, she had never been treated like this. The betrayal of her companions in the past was mostly due to jealousy. Even among the true disciples, there were many who were willing to become Dao companions with her. Brat, you're too full of yourself. All right, I'm going to start cultivating. Li Qingshan asked her to leave. He looked at her as if she was a little girl who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. He almost touched her head and said, "Hurry up and go home." Li Qingshan. Ruan Yaozhu felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. She wanted to leave, but if she just left like that, it would be too unnatural. She glanced at Zhu with a reproachful expression. Heavens, Ari, I finally understand what it means to be unable to escape a calamity. You two lunatics, you'd better behave yourselves. The nine-colored deer couldn't stand it anymore and let out a sigh. Not only did it not achieve its goal, but it also pushed them from behind. Filled with grief and indignation, it rushed away against the wind and snow. To be continued. Chapter 1404. Heavy snow fell one after another. The body tree was covered in frost, but the golden leaves didn't wither. They shone with golden light through the frost and snow. The iron gourd hung upside down and shook a few more times before helplessly dropping the last drop of wine. Li Qingshan smacked his lips. It seems like the new year is coming. There was a saying, there is no 60-year cycle in the mountains, one does not know the year after the end of the winter. Cultivators' time was often counted in thousands of years, so the one-year plan of mortals didn't seem to have much meaning. However, since he was once a mortal, he couldn't be completely unmoved. Not to mention that he was all alone, eating the wind and drinking the snow, drifting for tens of thousands of miles. Time flew by, and it was deep cold. Everything stopped growing, and there was much less work. Everyone gathered in the small town to celebrate. Because of this 100-herb garden, they felt the seasons more clearly than normal cultivators. Cheerful laughter floated over the distant mountains, and along with the cold wind came the aroma of all kinds of food. Li Qingshan couldn't help but take a deep breath. Of course, no one came to invite him. Other than Shun Yu Shu, he didn't even talk to them, so he was happy to be alone. However, after being probed by the nine-colored deer, Ruan Yaozhu didn't come again. It seemed like she had wisely accepted his suggestion. Although he didn't regret it, he couldn't help but feel some regret. It had to be said that he really liked her. If he didn't have the ambition of the 9 heavens, staying with her in this 100-herb garden seemed like a good choice. However, why did it have to be her? He didn't care about anything and had already let down too many beauties. He shook his head and cast his consciousness towards the 5 regions world. Although it was winter in the mortal realm, here was the golden autumn harvest season. On the fertile plains, a majestic city stood. Its layout was actually somewhat similar to Wanxiang City, especially the tall buildings in the city, which were almost the same as the sky, just that the scale was many times smaller. This was the Cloud Void City that Li Qingshan personally built with the mighty power of the world for his grand plan. That's right, this name came from the original Cloud Void Society, and Liu Chuanfeng was the current Cloud Void City Lord. In the past, the 100 schools all had their own holy lands. For example, the Buddhist Lingua Temple, the Medicine School's Imperial Hospital, and the Confucian School's Imperial College. Only the School of Novels did not. Now that Li Qingshan, a disciple of the School of Novels, had carried it forward, it finally had it. The various holy lands were different. This place did not belong to cultivators alone. Most of the people in the city were mortals without any power. Because the location Li Qingshan had chosen was too good, it suddenly became one of the most important transportation hubs in the continent, with countless Jianghu travelers and merchants coming and going. There were also countless down-and-out people who put their life experiences and thoughts into words to fight for a future. The first year, under Qian Lingji's guidance. The lord of Cloudvoid City, Liu Chuanfeng, acted as if he was buying a horse's bones with 1,000 pieces of gold. Gold and silver were not stingy at all. Regardless of the quality of the novels they collected, all they wanted was to attract more people. Later on, they began to pay attention to quality, and the threshold was also extremely low. Facts had proven that as long as there were enough benefits, humans could always burst forth with unimaginably powerful motivation. In just a few years, the pseudo-heaven had accumulated more than 10,000 volumes of novels. After careful selection, there were still nearly 100 scrolls left. Li Qingshan swept his eyes over them and recorded them all into a jade scroll. He stood up and said with a smile, "It's time to buy some wine to drink. The long road is long, don't sigh at the lonely journey, there will be a day when the world knows you." In the small town surrounded by mountains, the voices of people were clamorous, toasts were exchanged, and it was very lively. The banquet was in full swing, and Shen Yushu sat high up. He was fawned over by everyone, but his face was shrouded in a layer of haze, without the slightest bit of joy. Ruan Yarozhu did not accept his invitation, and that damned Li Qingshan continued to expand his territory. In a short 2 to 3 months, he had reached a circumference of 100 li. What was even worse was that he also took care of the thousands of strange flowers and plants within a circumference of 100 li in an orderly manner, not only proving himself, but also proving Ruan Yaozhu's accurate vision. Ruan Yaozhu's favor towards that Li Qingshan was simply unusual, and the meaning behind it made him tremble with fear. Ruan Yaozhu was clearly already very dissatisfied with him. If there was a day when Li Qingshan crossed 4 heavenly tribulations, had stronger power, and had more doppelgangers, then he would immediately be kicked out, just like those losers that he had driven out. Those losers at least had other choices, and for him, there was no place more suitable for cultivation than the 100 Herb Garden. Crossing 5 heavenly tribulations, the dream of becoming a successor disciple would be extended indefinitely, and becoming Tao companions with Ruan Yarozhu was even more of an idiot's ravings. He couldn't help but feel somewhat regretful. Perhaps he should not have shown it so directly, and should have waited until he became a successor disciple before slowly plotting. But if it wasn't for obtaining her help, why would he have racked his brains and risked offending her to press forward step by step? He was too confident, thinking that no one could replace his position with a volume of the natural heavenly tomes, otherwise he would not have dared to take an inch and take a mile. He did not expect that a person who cultivated another heavenly tomes could also replace his position. Damn it! A trace of harshness flashed through his eyes, and the wine cup in his hand cracked. The crisis was constantly approaching, but he could only sit here, without the slightest bit of a solution. This was the 100 Herb Garden, and everything was under her control, so he couldn't use any tricks. She seemed to be looking down at him from a high position. It was her usual gentleness and dullness that gave him an illusion that the distance between them was very close. At this time, he suddenly realized that there was a huge gap between a chamber disciple and a successor disciple. If he was expelled from the 100 Herb Garden, not only would it greatly affect his cultivation, but he would also be questioned and even suppressed. Because her prestige in the Myriad Appearance sect was too high, making her an enemy was equivalent to carving the word bad on his face. Just when he didn't dare to continue thinking about it, a cultivator quietly came behind Shen Yushu and sent him a telepathic message. "Senior brother Shen, that kid has left the 100 Herb Garden." "Good, very good." Shen Yushu raised his head and drank it all in one gulp, then threw down the wine cup and flew away. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. In the 100 Herb Cave, Ruan Yarozhu slightly frowned. "This Shen Yushu is too much." The 9-colored deer transformed into a human form and laid horizontally in the basket, its delicate legs swinging back and forth. It lazily said, "He is afraid of being expelled from the 100 Herb Garden, so he wants to stake it all on one throw." Ruan Yarozhu sighed. He has been in the 100 Herb Garden for so many years, even if he doesn't have any merits, he has still worked hard. As long as he restrains himself and works seriously, how could I be so heartless? Hihi. Although you both cultivate the natural heavenly book, the direction is very different. What you see is the growth of all living things. The heavens have the virtue of caring for all living things, using benevolence to shepherd all living things. This is the disposition of a king. He spent untold hardships to climb to this step. What he sees is the struggle of all living things, so he does his utmost to exclude those who are a threat to him. He still wants to get more sunlight and rain from you. This is the disposition of the common people. But cultivation methods are dead in the end, and people are alive. We have long surpassed the so-called king and people of the common people of the common people. Junior brother Lee is also not from the royal family, but he has great ambitions, determination, and decisiveness, surpassing me. That kid is a freak. I beg you, don't praise him anymore. From Shun Yu Shu's point of view, of course you would expel him from the 100 Herb Garden. No matter how benevolent a king is, the common people are still skeptical. Besides, who would tolerate someone who wants to harm their own cultivation staying by their side? You have always been too easy to talk to. You should have ruthlessly beaten him long ago. But this is also good, at least he will not be a hindrance to you, much safer than that kid. No, I have to stop him. He still hasn't done anything. Yi, could it be that you have finally learned to use your identity as a direct disciple to suppress people? The 9-colored deer teased. At least I have to remind junior brother Lee you want to see him? Nonsense. Chapter 1405. The deer's eyes flickered with a rare cold light, containing both admonishment and warning. Ruon Yaroju could only say, "Fine, I won't show myself, but I want to ask eldest Marshall's sister to help me keep an eye on them. They are all people of 100 Herb Garden, how can I sit idly by?" Although Li Qingshan was good at fighting, Wanxiang sect was a place that paid attention to seniority. If he fought with an inner disciple in Wanxiang City, he would suffer greatly. She blamed herself for indulging Shen Yushu too much. Now that he was going to harm a good person, she definitely wouldn't let it go. Eldest Marshall's sister. The 9-colored deer revealed a strange expression. Although it could understand Ruon Yaoju's thoughts, letting that person interfere could cause trouble. Ruon Yaoju also felt it was inappropriate, but she insisted, even if it was junior Marshall brother Lee instead of junior Marshall sister Lee, I would do the same. The 9-colored deer saw her determined expression and knew it was useless to persuade her. Fine, fine, do as you wish. He thought, this is also good, that person is much more powerful than me and has that kind of relationship with Yaoju. Once he feels that the brat is a threat, he definitely won't let it go. I don't care what a blockhead like you thinks. Heavy snow also fell on the ocean. As the frigid winds swept about, it danced about wildly. The space between the ocean and the sky was chaotic and hazy. Li Qingshan whistled through it. Shun Yushu followed behind him from a distance. His expression was somewhat sinister, no longer as gentle as usual. He was like a predator chasing his prey, wishing he could immediately kill Li Qingshan on the sea. However, he forcefully suppressed this thought. They were both disciples of Wanxiang's sect and killing each other was a taboo in the sect. If he killed Li Qingshan, he wouldn't be able to escape punishment. As for not being a match for Li Qingshan, he didn't even think about it. I was too careless that day and fell into his trap, not being able to use many of my methods. If I had gone all out from the start and used my yin soul to cast spells, how could a nascent soul cultivator fight him? What right does a nascent soul cultivator have to exchange blows with him? I only hate that bitch Ruon Yaoju for choosing that time to appear and humiliate me for nothing. He was full of resentment, but he did not care that Ruon Yaoju had helped him hold onto his natal magic weapon, the 9 sections green bamboo staff. And so many years of kindness. All of a sudden, Li Qingshan stopped and stood on the stormy sea. Could it be that I've been discovered? Chen Yushu felt a chill in his heart and he quickly stopped. There was a faint trace of fear in his heart. In the 100 Herb Garden. It had been over 100 years since he had participated in a fight. Impossible. My cultivation of the nature heavenly tome excels in concealing my aura. He definitely won't be able to find me. Even if they find out, what can they do to me? Indeed, Li Qingshan did not notice him. Even if he did, he would not take it to heart. After all, he was just a petty person. What made him stop was a shining star in the boundless void, a brand new world. He had 2 mirror images. One of them was the world god of the 5 continents world, while the other accompanied the void-devouring beast as it traversed through the void. Flying to a new world, he had been waiting. After a long journey, Deep Blue Little Fatty finally arrived in front of the star. Without his orders, it could not overcome its instincts and devour its own kind. It could only approach to the extreme. Li Qingshan walked out of its abyss-like mouth and looked around. He could clearly see the continents and oceans under the cotton-like clouds. This world was much smaller than the 5 continents world, but it was much larger than the original small world. It was probably a small world that could accommodate one heavenly tribulation. Even if devouring it could not allow the 5 continents world to evolve immediately, it could also expand by a lot. It gave confidence to all the cultivators of the 5 continents world. He did not immediately order Deep Blue Little Fatty to do so. There were billions of living beings in this new world. He needed the heaven-climbing vine. There was only one heaven-climbing vine, and it had always been connected to the human realm. This was to prevent any changes in the situation and leave a way out for Little and the others. He held his chin and thought for a while. He decided to pull the heaven-climbing vine out of the human realm and devour the new world first. After such a long time, the myriad phenomenon sect did not have any reaction. After all, Chuolong was not dead. Even if he stayed in the sect, there was still a life lamp. It would definitely not be extinguished. This new world was too big. It should not take long for the devouring to be completed. When he connected the heaven-climbing vine to the 5 continents world and Deep Blue Little Fatty, he immediately started devouring the new world. In the new world, all living beings looked up to it. A month ago, a dark blue giant star appeared in the night sky. It kept growing bigger and could be seen clearly even in the daytime. At this moment, it finally covered the whole sky. It gave people the illusion that the sky was clear for miles. However, there were no sun, moon, or stars. The fear of the end of the world had pervaded the air for too long. At this moment, there was a strange tranquility. All they had to do now was to accept their fate. No one would ever be able to forget this scene. A black crack appeared in the sky and suddenly covered the entire sky. Li Qingshan heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if he could have such power in the human realm. He smiled and continued forward. When he arrived at the myriad phenomenon city, he went straight to the sky. As soon as he entered the city, the female cultivator who led the way for him last time was waiting for him. "Senior brother Li, the spirit venerable asked me to bring you up." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised. Senior brother, you've improved by leaps and bounds on the myriad phenomenon list. You've already surpassed me." The female cultivator smiled warmly and spoke gently. Compared to the last time, she was a completely different person. When she first joined the sect, she was only a servant. It took her hundreds of years to become a nascent soul cultivator and become a disciple. She then found a job in the sky. But this senior brother Li in front of her was not only a disciple as soon as he joined the sect, but he also rose by almost 1,000 ranks on the myriad phenomenon list in a short period of time. He was even summoned by Spirit Venerable Gui Hai twice. It would not take long for him to become a disciple. How could she not take care of him? Myriad phenomenon list. Li Qingshan had never heard of such a thing. Senior brother, don't you know? It's no wonder. You just joined the sect not long ago. You're really a genius. The female cultivator walked side by side with him. She talked and smiled as they walked. After listening to her explanation, Li Qingshan realized that the myriad phenomenon sect actually had such a magical place. He had to go and take a look later. After presenting the book this time, wouldn't his ranking rise even more? He didn't enter the city just to present the book. As a disciple, he could receive many benefits, such as cave abodes, dharma treasures, mounts, and so on. Ruan Yaozhu brought him to the 100 Herb Garden the last time he left the city, so he didn't have time to receive them. Dharma treasures and mounts could be converted into bookmarks even if he didn't need them. But a cave abode was a must. He couldn't let Little and the others be in danger. But thinking about it, the cave abode given by the myriad phenomenon sect wouldn't be much better. He wanted a large villa on the level of a true dragon cave abode, not a random suitable house. But he didn't know how much the house price was here. But it didn't matter. With Spirit Venerable Gui Hai, he could afford it no matter how expensive it was. To be continued. Chapter 1406. What? The quality is too poor. Take a closer look. Li Qingshan held a brass lot as he said indignantly to Spirit Venerable Gui Hai. After putting in so much effort, he only obtained this much. This was very different from what he imagined. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai swept his gaze at the jade slip again and actually took back a mystic wood lot from Li Qingshan's hand. Li Qingshan was enraged. These bookmarks added up were not even enough for a single green jade lot. This old bastard was not pockmarked but a scam. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai suddenly asked, "Where did you get these books from?" Li Qingshan rolled his eyes. It was meaningless to lie in front of this old bastard, so he decided not to answer. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said earnestly, "Don't be indignant. The quality of the books you brought this time is much worse compared to the previous time. I have never misjudged the value of books. Yes, I was wrong." Li Qingshan thought about it and had no choice but to admit it. The books that he had brought last time were all exquisite works that had been washed over thousands of years. This time, however, they were the creations of a group of money-seeking people in just a few short years. Although they had been carefully selected, the quality of the books was naturally not the same as before. This shortcut was indeed not that easy to take. "Forget it, I'll find another way," just as he was about to bid farewell and leave, never to return again. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai took out another green jade lot and handed it to Li Qingshan. What was this? Giving a carrot after a stick? Li Qingshan asked curiously, "Is this a consolation prize?" Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said, "This is the deposit." Li Qingshan said, "Didn't you find the books bad?" Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said with a faint smile, "Just because it's bad this time doesn't mean it'll be bad next time. I left some comments in the jade slip. Study them well. I believe it will be better in the future." Li Qingshan's heart palpitated. These books were not written by him, so what was there to study? He suddenly realized that there was a huge flaw in this matter from the beginning. Novels were indeed fictional, but they were definitely based on reality. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai was an existence that could infer a lot of information with just one or two sentences. Looking at his half-smiling expression, it was as if he had seen through all causes and effects. These novels may be inadvertently. Many things had already been exposed. The so-called shortcuts were mostly dangerous. A single misstep would cause one to fall into the abyss. His body would be smashed to pieces. What a blunder! Li Qingshan decisively returned the azure jade lot to Spirit Sovereign Gui Hai. "Sorry, I don't have any more." Spirit Sovereign Gui Hai had already turned to leave. What's done cannot be undone. If you can't bring more and better books, you'll be deceiving your superiors and will be punished severely. Li Qingshan felt a headache coming on. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai's meaning was, "It's too late for regrets now. Punk, you have already entered a den of thieves. If you don't satisfy me, don't even think of leaving unscathed." Spirit Venerable Gui Hai suddenly stopped. "Do you want to know the secret to longevity?" Yes. Mind your own business." Li Qingshan frowned and walked out of the sky. He took a deep breath of the cold air and his brows relaxed. He did not regret it. This was because he had no other choice. From the moment he refused to leave the Myriad Phenomenon sect, he was taking a risk. He had to take this dangerous path. It was not necessarily a bad thing to let Spirit Venerable Gui Hai understand the situation. At the very least, it could reduce his suspicions. Humans were always friendlier to things they could understand and control. Through Spirit Venerable Gui Hai's attitude today, one could see a thing or two. Furthermore, he did not have any ill intentions towards the Myriad Phenomenon sect. He came here to cultivate. Everything he did was beneficial to the Myriad Phenomenon sect's development. He believed that Spirit Venerable Gui Hai would only mind your own businesses if he saw all of this. Even if it was the worst outcome. In the future, His battle with Chuo Long would be exposed before he joined the Myriad Phenomenon sect. It would not be considered a fratricide. Furthermore, he did not kill Chuo Long in the end. It was just a personal grudge over benefits. He believed that when that day came, he would be an inherited teachings disciple. There was no need for the Myriad Phenomenon sect to deal with an existing inherited teachings disciple for the sake of an inherited teachings disciple who had fallen into the fiend domain. All in all, his luck was pretty good. Just as Spirit Venerable Gui Hai said, just because it wasn't good this time doesn't mean the next time won't be good. Cloud Void City had just been built, and everything was still in its infancy. Since an experienced reader like Spirit Venerable Gui Hai was willing to believe that the next time would be better, he had no reason to doubt it. This shortcut could still be taken. Standing on the high platform and looking out, Myriad Phenomenon City was covered in white snow. It was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, giving off a festive atmosphere. There was a faint fragrance of wine in the cold wind, whetting his appetite. Following the fragrance, he found a restaurant. He first tasted a cup of every kind of wine and chose the best one. He poured all the bookmarks he had obtained from the book offering into the metal gourd. After taking a few mouthfuls, he felt a surge of heat rolling in his stomach. He immediately felt happy. Recalling the Myriad Phenomenon list that the female cultivator had mentioned, he went over out of curiosity. The square was packed with people and carriages. The sounds of chatter, laughter, and hawkers rose and fell, filling the sky. Amidst the surging crowd, Li Qingshan stood motionlessly in front of the Myriad Phenomenon list. He turned a deaf ear to the hustle and bustle as he looked straight at the top of the list. The heat in his stomach turned cold as he felt a sense of danger. The first on the Myriad Phenomenon list, Lin Xian, or rather, Chu Tian. So he was the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. In that instant, the past flashed past, and many questions were answered. Chu Tian was the reincarnation of the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect, Lin Xian. His unparalleled talent came from this. After all, he had been a human sovereign in his previous life. Although he was not a true reincarnation of a deva, there were not many deva who could be compared to him even in the heavenly Tao. Qian Rongji's sky-climbing vine must have come from him as well. Back then, he was still the stupid Chu Tian. The reason why she was able to gain Chuo Long's trust and successfully counterattack was probably because she had impersonated Lin Xian. Only after coming to the Myriad Phenomenon sect did he understand how precious a heavenly book was. It was a peerless cultivation technique that could help one become a human immortal. Lin Xian was able to casually take out a heavenly book of Cloud Furnace to thank Ayushin. How generous was that? However, he had even more questions. Why did Lin Xian reincarnate? First of all, it was definitely not to cooperate with Chuo Long's plan. He also found Chuo Long's name on the Myriad Phenomenon ranking, and it happened to be the last among the direct disciples. How could the strongest cooperate with the weakest, let alone make such a huge sacrifice? The 9 states was not worth Lin Xian giving up everything. Moreover, Chuo Long was determined to have the 9 states as his territory. Lin Xian could not monopolize it. To the Myriad Phenomenon sect, it was not worth it to trade a direct disciple for a grotto heaven. Moreover, it was the eldest senior brother of the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Then there was only one explanation. Lin Xian's lifespan was almost up, and he had to reincarnate. If Le Tien could make a bet with Oxhead Arbien, then with Lin Xian's identity and cultivation, he could naturally do something. Thus, he successfully reincarnated into the 9 states and brought a sky-climbing vine with him. Even if he reincarnated as a dog, he could quickly become a spirit. As for why he did not reincarnate into the mortal realm, there were probably a few reasons. The mortal realm was too vast, and it was not easy to find. If it could be easily found, the Myriad Phenomenon sect was probably not without enemies. Moreover, in the mortal realm, low-level cultivators were too weak, and there was no guarantee of their safety. It was different in the 9 states. With Chu Tian's talent and the help of the sky-climbing vine, he could quickly make a name for himself and protect himself. Moreover, the system of the 100 schools of thought seemed to be tailor-made for him. Lin Xian had a close relationship with Chuolong. Chuolong must have received a lot of help from this eldest senior brother for him to be able to reach the level of human sovereign so quickly. Lin Xian must have been preparing since then. With this relationship, Chuolong could be his guide and help him recover his memory and cultivation as soon as possible so that he could return to the myriad phenomenon sect. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Before he recovered his memory and cultivation, he was bitten by the poisonous snake, Qianrongji, and almost lost his life. Although it was a blessing in disguise, and he recovered some of his memory, he knew from the incident with the Banyan Tree King that his memory must be incomplete. The spirit of a severely injured foundation-building cultivator could not bear all the memories of a human sovereign. A random scroll of the heavenly book contained a vast amount of information. In order to reincarnate and cultivate again, he probably prepared more than one scroll of the heavenly book. In addition to the large amount of experience in cultivation, the memories left behind in other areas were even more limited. Chapter 1407. This was not good news to Li Qingshan. It meant there were even more unpredictable variables. If it was just a hui long, as long as his life lamp was not extinguished, no one would find it strange even if he did not appear for 8 to 10 years. This was the lifestyle of cultivators. However, if it involved a reincarnated senior brother of the myriad phenomenon sect, then things would be hard to say. Who knew how many friends and enemies he had in the myriad phenomenon sect? Countless people were eyeing the true dragon abode. Perhaps even the 2 sect masters of the myriad phenomenon sect would pay special attention. Little and the others have been staying in the true dragon abode. Although it is beneficial for cultivation, it is too unsafe. I have to change places as soon as possible, even if it is just a little bit worse. Li Qingshan made up his mind. However, Deep Blue Little Fatty still needed some time to devour the new world. If he pulled out the sky-climbing vine now, who knew how many people would die? Nothing happened after so long, it can't be such a coincidence. Li Qingshan suppressed the trace of unease in his heart and continued to head to the Spirit Beast Garden to collect his mount. However, a Mohist master once said, if you are worried about something happening, then it is very likely to happen. North of Myriad Phenomenon City, 18,000 li. The wind howled and the waves raged, slamming against the black cliff again and again. The snowstorm danced and rumbled as it swept past the cliff. A black stone tablet stood on the cliff, overlooking the raging sea. 4 large words were carved on it, Shenming Cave Abode. If Li Qingshan was here, he would definitely be able to tell that these words were written by the same person as the true dragon abode. Behind the stone tablet was a mountain. The mountain was tens of thousands of li tall, piercing through the clouds as if it was connected to the sky. There was no peak at the top, only a deep abyss that spanned dozens of li. It was like a black eye embedded in the sea of clouds, staring at the endless sky. The abyss was so deep that even light could not illuminate it. A lucky snowflake was swept up by the storm and sent above the clouds, but unfortunately fell into the abyss. It had a crystalline color and a hexagonal shape. Like a stray spirit, it wandered around hesitantly, drifting lightly. After drifting for an unknown period of time, he finally reached the bottom of the abyss. Without a sound, a faint ripple appeared on the black and transparent surface of the lake, melting away its sparkling color and hexagonal shape. The ripples should have quickly calmed down, but the surface of the lake gradually surged. It's about time. Lin Xian, have you failed? A deep and powerful voice muttered to itself. A pair of dragon eyes suddenly opened in the black lake. The dark body at the bottom of the lake suddenly moved. Its black scales rippled like flowing water. Its 5 claws stretched out and dug into the craggy rocks. It propped up its huge body, raised its head, and roared towards the sky. Boom! It was as if a 1,000-year-old volcano had been resurrected in the blink of an eye. What gushed out wasn't lava or fire, but a raging wave that weighed tens of millions of tons. An angry dragon emerged from the surging waves. At this moment, the majestic roar of the dragon could be heard, scattering the layers of clouds for thousands of miles. The surging waves turned into clouds that surrounded a gold-eyed profound dragon and soared into the sky. The dragon head was headed in the direction of the true dragon cave. Separated by a transparent crystal wall, Li Qingshan focused all of his attention on a strange fish egg with wings. All he saw was it fly around in the water, kicking up a series of splashes. It seemed to possess some kind of strange power. The description on the sign on the side was as follows: Glory fish egg, adult glory fish. Fish body, bird wings, sound like mandarin ducks, can fly and swim, and is good at water. Legend has it that it is related to the Kuan Peng by blood, but it hasn't been proven. It's worth 7 brass sticks, buy 2 get 1 free. I can give it to Yang Ying to play with. Li Qingshan clicked his tongue in wonder. He continued forward and arrived in front of another iron cage. Inside was a big brown bear. Its eyes were closed as if it was sleeping, and it was hugging a wooden stake in its arms. The sign beside it showed that this was a bear cub. Rather than saying it was sleeping, it was more accurate to say that it hadn't even opened its eyes. Its price was much more expensive than those glory fish eggs. The bear cub rolled around in its sleep, and the wooden stake in its arms shattered with a crack. Even a cub is so fierce. I wonder how fierce it will be when it matures. No wonder it needs such a thick iron cage. Li Qingshan continued forward. Iron-eating beasts are also known as black and white bears. They can eat iron and bamboo, and are intelligent. This is good, this is good. Li Qingshan was like a little kid visiting a zoo for the first time. He was so excited that he wanted to clap his hands. This spiritual beast garden was really too fun. It was somewhat similar to the herb garden. They were both grotto heavens, and the inside was like a natural park. There were all kinds of strange and rare beasts for people to choose from. Whether they flew in the sky, ran on the ground, or swam in the water, there was everything. Some spiritual beasts could fly in the sky, run on the ground, and even swim in the water. Many of them had only been heard of in legends, and some were even unheard of. Senior Martial Brother, have you chosen? This iron-eating beast was caught by our senior Martial Brother Sima from the spiritual beast garden with great difficulty. It's very easy to raise. All you need is bamboo and iron. If you want to raise a bear cub, you'll have to buy at least a few thousand kilograms of meat a month. That's not a small amount. The iron-eating beast is also a bear, and when it gets fierce, it's not much worse than a bear cub. It's even more human-like, and it's said that it can control one's mind. Look at its eyes. The female attendant in charge of reception introduced it very enthusiastically. She had already followed Li Qingshan all the way and had almost walked through the entire spiritual beast garden. She didn't reveal the slightest bit of impatience. Li Qingshan followed her finger and looked at the 2 dark circles under its eyes. The iron-eating beast also looked back at him. Perhaps because of the Chilean's bloodline, it seemed to be very close to him. It made him inexplicably have a strong urge to buy one to raise. However, this was choosing a mount, not a pet, so it was better not to waste a bookmark. Thus, he shook his head. Forget it, I'd better convert it into a bookmark. I like to walk by myself. The female attendant said, Senior Martial Brother, you're wrong. The so-called mount is just a saying. Which one of us doesn't know how to ride the clouds and the wind? Why must we ride on a beast? However, a mount is not only related to a cultivator's life, it's a lifelong companion that shares weal and woe. There's only one benefit that I can't not mention. It can greatly extend a cultivator's lifespan. What do you mean? Humans are the most intelligent of all creatures. It's a pity that their lifespan is too short, unlike the demon race who can easily live for tens of thousands of years. Thus, they have to learn from each other's strengths to make up for their shortcomings. They raise demonic beasts and sign a contract of alliance to extend their lifespan. Do you know Senior Martial Brother Le Tien from the Chaotic Life Mill? Li Qingshan said, sigh. However, I heard that he made a bet with Oxhead Arbien on the Yellow Springs Road. The female attendant smiled mysteriously. That's just a legend. Oxhead Arbien isn't that easy to fool. Have you seen that 3-legged golden toad? Li Qingshan nodded. 3-legged golden toad is the best at extending one's lifespan. I'm afraid Senior Martial Brother Le Tien only managed to stall for some time. It was the three-legged golden toad that helped him hang on to his last breath. Li Qingshan had all kinds of godfiend bloodlines, so his lifespan was very long. He had never considered this problem before. Furthermore, lifespan actually didn't mean much to him. If he couldn't reach the 9 heavens in time, Brother Ox's enemies probably wouldn't let him off. However, through Lin Shen's matter, he could feel how important lifespan was to human cultivators. Normal nascent soul cultivators only had a lifespan of 1,000 years. It was far from being comparable to demon kings of the same cultivation level. He looked at the adorable iron-eating beast. Sigh, these demonic beasts are really pitiful to be used like this. The female attendant glared at him. Senior Marshal Brother, you can't say that. The people in our spirit beast garden are all very caring. No matter how intelligent demonic beasts are, they are still demonic beasts. In the end, they were just demonic beasts and could not be compared to humans. In the demonic beast path, only 1% of 10,000 glory fish eggs can become glory fish. Only one can grow and lay eggs. This adult fish will go through all kinds of elimination and escape from hunters. The chances of it cultivating into a demonic beast are even lower. What's the use of having a long lifespan? Humans are the most intelligent of all creatures. Not only do we give them a better environment, we take care of their food and daily life. We can also inspire their intelligence and teach them to cultivate, allowing them to step onto the path of cultivation. Only by cultivating will they have such a long lifespan. We treat them even better than our own fathers. They just take care of us and give us a portion of their lifespan. Isn't that fair? Fut. Li Qingshan could not help but laugh. This female attendant was rather interesting. Thinking of Spirit Sovereign Gui Hai and the 9-colored deer's grandeur, he, who was inferior to a deer and a tortoise, probably did not have the right to pity these demonic beasts. Even if one lived in this world, it was inevitable to be ridden. Furthermore, it was riding on a white mount. Just a few people would dare to make one work for them. It was better to live a carefree life with these mounts. Thinking back to when that bastard Chuo Long wanted him to be a mount, it had truly infuriated him. Now, from the looks of it, it was not entirely an insult. Instead, it had the intention of promoting him. However, he had no interest in such a good thing where he was second to none. If it was Ruan Yaozhu. Ahem. Oh, I'm sorry. I understand. However, I think it's best to change it to a bookmark. I already have a mount. The female attendant was flattered. She did not expect him to apologize to her. She could not help but blush as she asked shyly, Senior Marshal Brother, what is your mount? Our spirit beast garden also provides all kinds of exquisite food. It's not expensive either. There's a set meal here. Raising a mount is a great knowledge. If there's anything you don't understand, I can help you take a look. The main business of the spirit beast garden was not selling spirit beasts. Instead, it was providing all kinds of related services. She was not afraid that Li Qingshan would not buy a mount. She was only afraid that Li Qingshan would not raise a mount. Oh, it's a phoenix. Li Qingshan used Li Fengyuan as an excuse again. He was considering when to bring him to the human realm to play. He did not allow others to ascend because he did not trust them. As the weakest of the 4 heavenly kings, Li Fengyuan was obviously not included in this list. He was not far from the 4th heavenly tribulation. He would definitely be a great help. Pretending to be a mount was not a bad idea. It was not worthwhile for him to ride him. It was only right for a son to carry his father once in a while. Phoenix. Phoenix. The female attendant was stunned. If the 3-legged golden toad was only good at prolonging one's life, the phoenix was good at nirvana rebirth. It was immortal and would be of great help to cultivators. Not to mention other benefits. However, the phoenix had a reserved and arrogant nature. How could it be a mount for someone? Senior Marshal Brother, you are not joking, right? Li Qingshan said, no. Is there anything to feed the phoenix here? Forget it, he likes to drink wine and eat meat. Drink wine and eat meat. The female attendant was already sure that Li Qingshan was bragging. However, she did not want to expose him. She smiled and said, Senior Marshal Brother, bring it to our spirit beast garden in the future. I have seen senior martial brother Lin Xian's golden-eyed profound dragon once. However, I have never seen a phoenix before. Sigh, this senior martial brother was so amiable. It was a pity that he liked to brag. Well said, well said. Li Qingshan's heart stirred. That trace of uneasiness that was suppressed suddenly became clear. Chapter 1408. Chuo Long, come out. Along with the dragon roars, a cloud descended from the sky and shrouded the sky above the dragon pool cave. Dragon scales and dragon body flew in the air, dragon claws and dragon horns appeared and disappeared. Suddenly, a huge dragon head appeared. Little and suddenly opened his eyes, which were clear and calm. He looked at Luo Hu Xiaoming and Jiyu Yangying quietly. Jiyu Yangying sighed, we still can't avoid this. Qingshan has just retracted the sky-climbing vine. What a coincidence. Is it because of him? Little and said lightly, impossible. Luo Hu Xiaoming said, there is no such thing as dodging. Whether it is because of Qingshan or not, this is our problem. He closed his eyes and sensed, a true dragon that has gone through 6 heavenly tribulations is not easy to deal with. Jiyu Yangying stood up, I'll try. The true dragon's arrival was like a mountain pressing down on them, cutting off their path of retreat and putting their lives on the line. Yet, the 3 of them did not panic at all, let alone fear or worry. The golden-eyed dragon roared, if you don't come out, I'll break your cave immediately. Rumble. Thunder and lightning interweaved in the clouds, flickering indefinitely. Senior, please calm down. Jiyu Yangying walked out of the cave and came to the peak of the mountain. She bowed and asked, may I ask why you are looking for my emperor? Who are you? The golden-eyed dragon lowered his head and stared at Jiyu Yangying. Jiyu Yangying answered calmly, I am the subordinate of my emperor, Chuo Long. I am here to guard the dragon pool cave. The golden-eyed dragon thought to himself, if she is not a disciple of the nature sect, then she must have come from the underworld. This means that the sky-climbing vine has been successfully reattached. The dragon was slightly relieved. Initially, he could sense Lin Xian's safety clearly. However, after he reincarnated, even the life lamp he had left in the sect had been extinguished. All connections were severed and he could no longer sense Lin Xian anymore. Where is Chuo Long? Jiyu Yangying hesitated. Is he still in the 9 states? Jiyu Yangying didn't know the identity of the Golden Eye's profound dragon, but since she knew Chuo Long and didn't attack the cave abode directly, she could talk to him. Then I'll be straightforward. My emperor is indeed still in the 9 regions. When will he return? I'm not sure about that. Sigh. Jiyu Yangying looked worried. He sighed. Why are you sighing? The 9 states are unfortunate. First, they were invaded by the demonic domain, then by the hungry ghost realm. I wonder how they are doing now. You're lying, the gold-eyed profound dragon roared. Tens of thousands of lightning bolts shot out at the same time, as if the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Jiyu Yangying was shocked even though she was separated by the magic circle. She folded her hands and bowed deeply. Everything I said is true. I dare not deceive you. Senior, please understand. HMPH. His courage was not bad. Go find Sui Long for me. Tell him to come see me immediately. The golden-eyed profound dragon had only made a feint, but his opponent's reaction was surprisingly calm, causing him to feel a little embarrassed. He even felt a little worried. Could it be that the cultivators of the Jojo world were all of such high quality? That was too shocking. This was not normal. Jiyu Yangying said awkwardly, but my emperor asked me to guard the cave abode and cultivate, no buts. I'll give you 3 days. If he doesn't come in 3 days, I'll break into the cave abode and kill all of you. The gold-eyed profound dragon was full of killing intent. If Lin Xian had already met Chuo Long, but Chuo Long didn't dare to see him, then the problem must be with Chuo Long. He had to find out the truth. Yes. Jiyu Yangying returned to the dragon pool abode. Prepare for battle or flee. If we fight, we'll die. If we flee, we won't be able to. This is a familiar feeling. Luo Hu Xiaoming smiled. I've been wondering if there's something wrong with the world. There's only one way left. The three of them looked at each other. They said in unison, tribulation transcendence. The three of them were on the verge of the fourth heavenly tribulation. Unlike Li Qingshan, they didn't have to think too much. It was only because they were in danger that they didn't want to cause too much of a commotion. That was why they had been enduring. After this period of cultivation, they had already gotten used to the laws of the human realm. They could go through the tribulation any time. Jiyu Yangying said, together. Little and said, together. The moment the heavenly tribulation started, the dragon outside would definitely be alerted. It might start attacking the cave abode immediately. There was no need to hide anymore. The gold-eyed profound dragon was in deep thought when he suddenly heard a special thunder. It was very weak, but it was different from the thunder he caused. It contained a trace of heavenly might. Looking over, tribulation clouds gathered in all directions. It was like an ambush had been set up on all sides. The heavenly might was vast. Tribulation lightning? The gold-eyed profound dragon instantly realized that something was wrong. Why did Lin Xian have to go through the tribulation the moment he arrived? Chuo Long only needed to come out and explain. There must be a huge change. He shouted angrily, Ant, how dare you bully me? Originally, it would take some effort to break through this dragon pool cave abode. Now, I can make use of this heavenly tribulation to raise this place to the ground. In a split second, the giant dragon danced in the sky. Wind and thunder surged, shaking the world. Li Qingshan left the spirit beast garden. He still felt uneasy. In this world, the person who had the closest relationship with Lin Xian was undoubtedly that gold-eyed profound dragon. It was impossible for him to return to the dragon pool cave abode immediately. He could work hard to be a pioneer, but that was all. Luckily, they could all take charge. I hope it will be fine. Li Qingshan picked up the metal gourd and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine. Suddenly, he felt that he was being watched. He turned around. There was no one around, but the feeling of being watched did not disappear. Instead, it became stronger. Shun Yushu held his breath and hid behind a tree. Did he notice me? Impossible. How did he notice me? Why should I hide? He followed Li Qingshan all the way to Wanxiang City. While secretly monitoring Li Qingshan's whereabouts, he thought of a way to deal with him until he was outside the spirit beast garden. If I directly go out and provoke him, if he dares to make a move on me, I will purposely not hide. He will not be able to escape punishment. No, if this spreads out, it will be too embarrassing. Right at this moment, he heard Li Qingshan's footsteps approaching. His heart suddenly jumped, and he felt an indescribable panic. Li Qingshan raised his head and widened his eyes. He saw a rabbit squatting quietly on the tree. It had black fur, long pointed ears, and fiery red eyes. It was staring at him, or rather, staring at the wine gourd in his hand. A rabbit climbing a tree? This kind of thing was originally worth being surprised. But after strolling around the spirit beast garden, he wouldn't be surprised even if a sow could climb a tree. He rubbed his chin and pondered, it probably escaped from the spirit beast garden. No matter how comfortable it is to be a mount, it still yearns for freedom. The black rabbit actually nodded its head. Hey, it can understand human language. As expected, it escaped from the spirit beast garden. Li Qingshan noticed its gaze. He raised the iron gourd in his hand and asked with a smile, "Do you want to drink?" Did rabbits drink wine? Of course, after going around the 100 herb garden, this kind of thing wasn't strange at all. With a whoosh, the black rabbit jumped down from the tree at an astonishing speed. It hugged the iron gourd and drank. Li Qingshan noticed that its four limbs had sharp claws. Of course, this wasn't strange at all. However, it was quite interesting to watch rabbits drink wine. TSK, you haven't drunk enough yet. This little stomach is quite good at holding. But soon he couldn't laugh anymore. When he picked up the iron gourd, he felt that it was empty. It didn't seem strange that a rabbit could drink so much wine. Not strange, my ass. Li Qingshan grabbed the rabbit's ears and lifted it up. Bastard, give me back my wine. The black rabbit stared at him with a pair of fiery red eyes. It rubbed its stomach with its two front paws and lazily burped. Li Qingshan was furious and waved his fist fiercely. At this moment, the waitress who led the way for him came out of the door and wanted to send Li Qingshan off. She felt that this senior brother who loved to brag was quite interesting. He had a high cultivation base and a good character. Especially, he was also good-looking. Suddenly seeing this scene, she couldn't help but be stunned. I was just scaring it, Li Qingshan said embarrassedly. A big man bullying a little rabbit was too degrading. In the words of the Spirit Beast Garden, it was no love. The waitress didn't say anything and immediately returned to the Spirit Beast Garden. Li Qingshan looked up to the sky and sighed. Was it easy for him to earn some bookmarks? It wasn't easy to collect some books for the old tortoise, but it was all gone in an instant. It was equivalent to all the accumulated harvest of these days falling into the stomach of this damn rabbit. He said fiercely, "You drank my wine. I will never let you go. Say, do you like fried or steamed?" The black rabbit didn't seem to understand human words and pretended to comb its fur. The waitress hid back into the Spirit Beast Garden and covered her mouth. That can't be Big Senior Sister's black fur raw, right? Chapter 1409. Li Qingshan shuddered and suddenly looked back in the direction of the Dragon Pool Cave abode. He frowned and thought, did something really happen? It can't be so coincidental, right? He had an urge to pull the sky-climbing vine back, but he endured it in the end. He was not so callous to disregard the lives of billions of living beings just because of a slight sense of danger. Otherwise, he would never have cultivated the Chilean longevity policy. He was only thinking and did not notice that the eyes of the black rabbit in his hand were turning redder and redder. Its originally minuscule aura was withdrawn as though it had fallen into a huge whirlpool. When it was withdrawn to the extreme, it would explode at a terrifying speed. My rabbit has a very bad temper, especially after drinking. Looks like I don't have to do anything. Somewhere in Wanxiang City, a certain senior sister's eyes shone with blood and fire as she muttered, "Hey, rabbit, don't cause too much damage to Wanxiang City. Otherwise, I'll deduct it from your wine bill." Li Qingshan shook his head. What was lost was already lost. There was no need to get angry at a rabbit. It would only make him look petty. Look at you. You don't even have any meat on you. It's not even enough for me to eat. Since I'm the one treating you, you can only blame it on your bad luck. Go. Just as he threw the black rabbit on the ground, it leaped back with a swoosh. Furthermore, it squatted on top of his head and the redness in its eyes faded a little. You're asking for a yard after being given an inch. Get down here. Li Qingshan reached out to grab it. The black rabbit jumped on top of his head and landed steadily on top of his head every time he missed. As expected of a spirit beast. Li Qingshan was shocked. Although the rabbit was not serious, it was quite extraordinary for it to be able to dodge his grabs consecutively. Li Qingshan was even more impressed. Forget it, since we drank the same gourd of wine, we can be considered drinking buddies. If you stay in Wanxiang City and get captured back to the Spirit Beast Garden, you will inevitably become someone's mount. What bullshit, love. Beasts without a control is the greatest joy. Even if you are hunted and eaten, your life will not be in vain. Since you want to be free, I'll be a good person to the end. Let's get you out of here. He reached out to grab it again, and sure enough, it stopped jumping and obediently let him grab it. It blinked its red eyes. It regained its original luster. Li Qingshan put it in his wide sleeve pocket and strode forward. He didn't know that he was on the edge of an extremely dangerous situation. Facing a demon emperor-level black-furred sky-gazing roar was no easier than facing a gold-eyed dragon. The woman said indignantly, "Humph! What kind of temper is this? You want to die just because I touched your ear. A single drinking buddy has bought you over." He took out a red gourd that was 10 times larger than Li Qingshan's metal gourd from his back. He gulped down a mouthful of alcohol and wiped his mouth. However, it's not good to use a drinking buddy as a meal. Not long after Li Qingshan left, Chen Yushu slowly came out from behind the tree and said with a sneer, "Sure enough, You have a lot of guts to actually dare to steal the spiritual beast garden's spiritual beasts. You just entered and you already learned to be a thief. Senior Sister Wan must be blind to appoint such a person. Using the heavenly book of nature, he blended his aura with the surrounding environment and followed Li Qingshan from afar to the spiritual treasures square. Seeing him disappear from the spiritual treasures square, he already understood that he was going to receive the various benefits of becoming a disciple. First receive a mount in the spiritual beast garden, then go to the spiritual treasures square to receive a talisman. Then, next, it would definitely be the Heaven Mansion department. He immediately came up with a plan. There was no need for him to appear personally. He didn't have to personally come out and make this Li Qingshan stumble. If he also stole the spiritual beasts in the spiritual beast garden, he could forget about staying in the 100 herb garden. Even Ruan Yarozhu would have nothing to say. Li Qingshan came to the spiritual treasures square not only to receive the benefits. As usual, he first took a look around. The spiritual treasures square was like a museum. All kinds of talismans and weapons were displayed on the exhibition stand. There was also a simple introduction written on the side. There was no lack of powerful talismans, but as a disciple, the benefits he could receive were only at the level of ordinary talismans in the 9 regions. It was even inferior to those powerful talismans in the 9 regions. However, it was free anyway, so there was nothing to be picky about. He didn't even care about those powerful talismans. He, who cultivated the 9 transformations of demons and gods, never relied on external objects. He directly exchanged the benefits for bookmarks and kept them in his pocket. "Can you repair weapons?" The attendant smiled and said, "Of course. May I ask what kind of weapon you want to repair?" Li Qingshan casually took out the last mad flower saber. A sharp and cold aura filled the hall, making the attendant's hair stand on end. However, he took a step forward. His eyes were shining, and he looked like he had seen a prey. "It's a Shura divine weapon. Is there a weapon soul?" The blade was full of cracks and damage, but it revealed a fierce aura of surviving hundreds of battles. It immediately attracted the attention of everyone around. Shura divine weapons didn't have as many changes as human talismans, but they were known for their sturdiness and sharpness. What kind of fierce battle did it go through to be so damaged? Li Qingshan asked with concern, "Can it be repaired? Could this be the last mad flower saber?" A male cultivator with a square face, wide ears, and a loud voice walked over. The badge on his chest showed that he was an inner disciple. Li Qingshan said, "Yes, how did Senior Martial Brother know? I can recite the weapon manuals of the Path of Azura's weapons of war like the back of my hand. Although I know the answer, I still have to ask, are you selling this saber?" "No." Li Qingshan shook his head. "As expected, you are just a nascent soul cultivator, yet you were able to gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul. You are really something. It's damaged so badly that we must use the Shura sacrificial altar. It won't be cheap to repair it. How many bookmarks do you want? I'll erase the rest for you. 8 green jade bookmarks." Without hesitation, Li Qingshan said, "I'll repair it." The Shura sacrificial altar was indeed amazing. Li Qingshan only waited for half a day and he returned with a brand new last mad flower saber. The saber's blade hummed, and the soul said, "Kid, you finally entered the 6 paths of reincarnation. Why didn't you go to the path of Azura? What a loser. I will definitely go there in the future. Keep your word, don't go back on it." "And, thank you." Li Qingshan smiled and said, "You're welcome." One of the Grand Senior Martial Sisters laughed and said, "Interesting, to be able to gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul, no wonder Shen Yushu was no match for him. With this saber in hand, he can challenge most of the inner disciples." She touched her waist, and there was also a blood-red saber there. She was very sure that a person who could gain the recognition of the Shura weapon soul was not a coward. Then why did he stay in the herb garden? With such a powerful weapon, wouldn't it be better for him to go out and fight? Could it be that he has ulterior motives towards my Juzi? Alright, for the sake of the Shura weapon soul, I have one more reason not to kill you. 998 more. Chapter 14:10. A mystical dragon was rolling in the vast pool of lightning, its body covered in tens of thousands of lightning bolts. It was so dazzling that one could not look at it directly. How can the fourth heaven's tribulation be so powerful? How can the fourth heaven's tribulation be so powerful? The golden-eyed mystical dragon was also shocked. With his help, the tribulation lightning became even more violent and turbulent. Occasionally, one or two lightning bolts would hit the dragon's scales. It actually felt a little painful, so it gradually retreated from the center of the pool of lightning. Ch, ignorant bastards. How dare you go through the tribulation in front of me? You really don't know what's good for you. It's a pity that they'll definitely turn into ashes in the tribulation lightning. I won't be able to ask what's going on down there. Little and wore the 3 burial robe, which danced in the lightning bolts and gradually became tattered. He put his palms together and wrapped them around the skull prayer beads. He chanted scriptures. His flesh was torn apart by the lightning, revealing his white bones. Jiyu Yangying spread her wings and hugged herself like a bird in winter, silently enduring the harsh cold. Only Luo Hu Xiaoming was the calmest. He opened his chest and let the lightning strike him. Relying on the Azura immortal body and the Rahu clan's bloodline and physique, he stood in the rumbling lightning bolts with his head held high. He laughed and said, "How satisfying." They were not ordinary demon kings or nascent soul cultivators. They had accumulated a lot of experience and were so powerful that they were not afraid of the lightning bolts. Suddenly, a lightning sword condensed in the void, dragging a string of lightning behind it. It slashed toward the weakest among the 3, Jiyu Yangying. Jiyu Yangying's heart skipped a beat. She felt that the power contained in this lightning sword was stronger than thousands of tribulation lightning bolts. However, she had never heard of a fourth heaven's tribulation encountering such a situation. Was it really exciting to go through the tribulation with these 2 monsters? The heaven's tribulation was the supreme law. It was locked by the heavenly secrets and could not be dodged. The only thing she could do was to be prepared to take it head-on. A white shadow flashed in front of her. Little and stood in front of her, his bony hands holding the Buddha slaying sword tightly. He met the lightning sword. Boom! The lightning sword flew backward, and the 3 burial robe almost turned into ashes. Little and took a step back and half knelt on the ground. The Buddha slaying sword was full of cracks, and his white of bones were trembling. Even the samdi flames of white bone in his eye sockets had become much dimmer. Why? Jiyu Yangying was surprised. She never thought that Little An would block this attack for her. Little An said, "Conserve your strength." Jiyu Yangying nodded solemnly. What they had to face was not only this lightning tribulation, but also a true dragon that was eyeing them covetously. It was true that their cultivation had improved greatly when they had just overcome the heavenly tribulation, but it was also when they were at their weakest. They could not afford to get tangled up in battle. Luo Hu Xiaoming's expression turned solemn as well. The tribulation thunder has condensed into a weapon. What a great honor! Tribulation lightning condensed into weapons, it would usually only appear after the 6th heavenly tribulation, specifically preventing people from becoming immortals. Using tens of thousands of tribulation lightning to condense a heavenly weapon, it could kill anyone who defied the heavens. Now, it was only the 4th heavenly tribulation, and yet it had appeared. Even if it was only a single one, it was still too terrifying. After the lightning sword was blocked by Little An, its radiance only dimmed slightly. When it returned to the surging lightning pool, it immediately regained its original radiance. In fact, it was even more intense. Luo Hu Xiaoming said, "Let me do it." Little An said, "Conserve your strength too." Luo Hu Xiaoming immediately understood what she meant. He smiled and said, as expected of the Whitebone inheritor, "You can still be so calm at such a time. You are not the slightest bit affected by emotions. However, can you block it?" "If I can't block it, I will die." The chaotic soul bell rang rapidly. The sound of the bell was like a real substance, creating a whistling thunder. She swung her sword and faced the tribulation lightning sword. Boom! Thousands of lightning bolts shot out from the mountain peak, reflected in the pair of golden dragon eyes, and a hint of surprise flashed through them. Could it be that she could really survive this heavenly tribulation? But that would be for the best. He could just capture her and ask her about it. If he had known this would happen, he would not have expanded the heavenly tribulation. Sigh, he had slept for too long this time. He still had not woken up, and his brain was not working well. Lightning bolts shot out again and again, and thunder roared. Unknowingly, the lightning gradually dimmed, and the thunder became softer, but it still continued. I didn't think that she would really survive it. The Golden Eyes dragon flew through the air and stared at the dragon pool cave abode below. Now, a strange bird cry suddenly sounded in the mountain. It sounded like an eagle's cry, and it also sounded like a phoenix's cry. The sound shook the 9 heavens and echoed through the layers of clouds. The great peng spread its green wings like clouds in the sky. It flapped with all its strength and soared thousands of miles into the sky. Kuan Peng, the Golden Eyes dragon, was shocked. If there was a natural enemy of a true dragon, it would be the Kuan Peng. When the Kuan roamed the sea, it could eat dragons. When it transformed into a peng, it was like an eagle hunting for a snake. Once it was targeted, it would most likely die. Therefore, the dragon race had an unwritten rule that if they encountered a young Kuan Peng, they must kill it. But it was also because of this rule that the dragon race had a terrifying nightmare. There was a Kuan Peng that reached the peak of the demon race and became a great sage. It was called Chaotic Heaven and specialized in patrolling the seas and hunting true dragons. Until the group of true dragons dove deep into the abyss. None of them dared to roam the sea or soar in the sky. Just now, he gave up and said, "If a dragon kills a Kuan Peng, then I will kill 500 true dragons." Even if the dragon race was good at reproduction and had a large population, they were still greatly weakened. Although he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, it was said that the great sage of Chaotic Heaven's wings were this green color. Seeing this scene, he couldn't help but hesitate. However, he changed his mind. That great sage of Chaotic Heaven had long been arrogant. She might be his successor, so he couldn't let her go. Want to leave? With a loud roar, the dragon soared thousands of miles and pounced on the Kuan Peng. Little and sat on the back of the Kuan Peng. The 3 burial robe was in tatters, revealing the broken white bones underneath. However, on the white bones, there was an unprecedented luster. Although the Samdi flame of white bone in his eye sockets was weak, it became more and more condensed. A huge dragon head pounced on him. "It's my turn." Luo Hu Xiaoming took a step forward and stared at the golden-eyed dragon with his blood-red eyes. If the Kuan Peng wanted to fly away, someone had to block the golden-eyed dragon from behind. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to fly for long before it ran out of energy. He was the most suitable candidate, so Little and asked him to preserve his strength. Although this was the best choice, it was also cruel and merciless. This was almost a fatal situation. Even if he was the divine son of Azura, he had no chance of winning against a demon emperor true dragon in this state. He didn't have any complaints about this. She had blocked the thunder sword of heavenly tribulation and almost died. What really annoyed him was that he had to hide behind a woman. Now that it was finally time for him to attack, he couldn't help but be eager. As for the consequences, there was no need to think too much. Just as she said, "If you can't block it, you die." It was just that simple. "If I die, ask him to help me kill this stinky earthworm." "Okay." Luo Hu Xiaoming jumped with the wind and pounced on the golden-eyed dragon. "Bastard, you're courting death." The golden-eyed dragon spat out a dragon's breath, which was so cold that the air froze. Luo Hu Xiaoming was frozen in the air. In the golden-eyed dragon's eyes, he was already a dead man. It didn't even look at him and rammed into him. "Who did you say is a bastard?" The sky darkened. Luo Hu Xiaoming shattered the ice, and a terrifying black giant appeared in the endless darkness. He punched the dragon's head. The golden-eyed dragon was caught off guard. Its charge was stopped, and it rolled a few times in the air before it stopped. It looked at Luo Hu Xiaoming in disbelief. To be continued. Chapter 14:11. The Abundance Department's courtyard was vast and majestic, but it wasn't a grotto heaven. Li Qingshan stepped onto the high steps, reported his name, and stated his purpose. The attendant in green glanced at him, and his smile faded slightly. He led him to a room and said, "Senior Brother Wang is busy. Please wait here for a while." Li Qingshan waited for half a day. He was the only one in the empty corridor. There wasn't any busy scene, but it seemed very deserted. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He first sorted out his thoughts for cultivation, and then took out the black rabbit from his sleeve to play with it. Unfortunately, the rabbit wasn't very cooperative. It even bit his hand hard when he angered it. Hiss! Li Qingshan took a deep breath. He saw that his finger was bleeding, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. He couldn't help but be shocked. Not to mention how strong his physique was, he also had a powerful defense talent like bull demon forging its hide. He finally felt that something was wrong. What breed was this rabbit? Just as he was about to check it, a man's cold voice sounded from inside the door. "Is there anyone else outside?" "Yes." Li Qingshan couldn't be bothered to argue with the rabbit. Anyway, he was going to let it go when he was outside the city, regardless of what breed it was. "Come in." Li Qingshan pushed the door open and entered. The large room was decorated elegantly. There was a scroll of calligraphy on the wall that said, "It's rare to be muddle-headed." A slightly plump man with a round face was sitting in front of the coffee table, sipping tea. He glanced sideways and said, "You are Li Qingshan?" "That's right." Li Qingshan was displeased. What has this damn fatty been busy with? Even if a cultivator's concept of time was different from that of a normal person, this wait was too long. The service attitude of the abundance department is incomparable to that of the Spirit Beast Garden and the Spirit Treasures Square. No wonder the senior brother who received me said that he wanted me to leave the bookmark here as a bribe. Impudent. I am your senior brother. Senior Brother Wang's face darkened. Li Qingshan raised his eyebrows. This damn fatty was just like him. He was just a disciple who had just entered the hall. What was he being so arrogant for? However, when he thought about how little Anne and the others were in the Dragon Pool Immortals Cave and how they were in dire need of an Immortals Cave, he suppressed his anger and said, "Senior Marshal Brother Wang, I'm here to claim my Immortals Cave." "Wait a moment. Can't you see I'm busy?" Before he could finish, he was interrupted by the fat man. He leisurely took a sip of tea. Li Qingshan frowned. He was clearly looking for trouble, but he hadn't offended him. Even if it was for bribery, there was no need to be so disgusting. "Yeah, I saw it. I'm so busy eating shit." Senior Brother Wang spat out his tea and flew into a rage. "What did you say?" "I told you to go eat shit." Li Qingshan cursed inwardly. He turned around and left, wondering if Wanxiang City had a complaint agency. How dare you insult Senior Brother to his face? I will teach you a lesson today. A cold smile appeared on Senior Brother Wang's face. Everything was going according to plan. Not long ago, Shen Yushu came to his door to plot with him. He wanted him to think of a way to make things difficult for Li Qingshan. As long as he angered him, a violent conflict would occur. This would attract the Law Division's patrol officer. This was the territory of the Heaven Mansion Department. Shen Yushu was an inner disciple and the head butler of the 100 Herb Garden. He had a lot of connections. As long as he could get Li Qingshan into the Law Division, he would have ways to deal with him. Senior Brother Wang fiercely slapped Li Qingshan. He was very happy. Shen Yushu promised to give him a 10,000-year-old Lingji as a reward after the matter was settled. HMPH, a new inner disciple. How dare you offend an inner disciple? You really don't know what's good for you. Even if there's no reward, I will still teach you the rules of seniority. When you enter the Law Division, you will suffer. Li Qingshan became more and more certain of his judgment. He even faintly guessed who was behind this. The only enemies he had in the Myriad Appearance sect were Letian and Shen Yushu. At this moment, the bet with Letian had just begun, so there was no need for him to do such a despicable thing. In that case, it was definitely that vile Shen Yushu. He didn't even turn around and casually grabbed the slapping white palm. He turned around and pressed down on his head. Clang! Before Senior Brother Wang could react, his head was pressed down on the tea table. The tea set on the table jumped around and the tea spilled all over his head and face. He was shocked. How was this possible? They were both nascent soul cultivators. How could there be such a big difference? Li Qingshan said, "Speak, who sent you to disgust me?" Senior brother Wang said, "Li Qingshan, you dare to offend your superior and attack your senior brother. I will report you to the law division." Li Qingshan sneered. "So that's what you're planning? Let me ask you again, who is it?" Senior brother Wang couldn't break free. He cursed loudly, wanting to alarm the people outside. Li Qingshan was already restless. At this time, anger rose in his heart and evil grew in his guts. He sneered, "You won't speak, right? Senior brother Wang, I will treat you to a cup of tea." "Calm down." He grabbed a teacup and stuffed it into his mouth. Then a second, a third. After stuffing the teacup, there were also various tea sets, small pincers, and so on. In the end, there was only a small teapot left on the tea table. He crushed it and stuffed it into his mouth. The black rabbit had jumped out of his sleeve at some point, its ruber-like eyes glistening with a red light as it watched this scene. A certain senior sister smiled, "Heh, so satisfying. But what does Yarozhu see in such a tyrannical guy?" Li Qingshan said, "Senior brother Wang, now you're done, right? Who should I say? If you don't speak, I will treat you to everything in this room." Senior brother Wang's mouth was full of blood. He stared at Li Qingshan with bloodshot eyes and said vaguely, "Li Qingshan, kill me if you have the guts." "I will definitely kill you." "Good, you're unyielding. I admire you." Li Qingshan smiled and grabbed his head to the difficult character. "Ian, it's rare to be muddle-headed. Did you write it?" "Good writing, the taste must be good." He licked his lips. "You seem to taste okay. Although it's a little greasy, it's suitable to go with wine." A moment later, the green-clothed attendant who led the way for Li Qingshan hurried to the door. He knocked a few times and called for senior brother Wang, but there was no response. There was only a strange whining sound. He steeled his heart and pushed the door open. The scene in front of him shocked him. Li Qingshan held senior brother Wang's neck with one hand and the scroll with the other. He shoved the messy things in senior brother Wang's mouth down. Senior brother Wang was crying, his eyes filled with fear. He said, "Save me, call someone." Li Qingshan glanced at him. The green-clothed attendant stepped back and sat on the ground. He said in a trembling voice, "Li. Senior brother Li, senior brother Pai asked me to invite you." Li Qingshan was surprised. "Senior brother Pai? Pai Yangqiu?" Yes. "Okay, I'll go now." Li Qingshan felt better after venting his anger. He took the black rabbit and left senior brother Wang. The green-clothed attendant looked at Li Qingshan in awe. "Senior brother Wang, Senior brother Pai asked you to get out of the Sky Mansion department. Don't embarrass yourself here." Senior brother Wang was currently lying on the ground, gasping for air. His expression changed drastically when he heard that. Being viciously taught a lesson by Li Qingshan was only a flesh wound. It only seemed horrible, and he could recover in a moment. Being chased out of the abundance department would truly be fatal. Chapter 14:12. At the highest level of the Treasury Department, there were pavilions, small bridges, and flowing water. It was like a huge garden. Pai Yangqiu sat alone among the flowers and trees, looking down at Wanxiang City leisurely. Li Qingshan went forward to greet him. Pai Yangqiu smiled and said, "Junior brother Li, long time no see." Li Qingshan was slightly surprised and cupped his hands. "I was angry and went a little overboard. Please forgive me, senior brother." Pai Yangqiu waved his hand. How can a man be humiliated by a villain? It's one thing for these fellows to take advantage of others, but now they've learned to betray others. They really don't deserve to be human. Li Qingshan had only met Pai Yangqiu once and did not expect him to be so reasonable. He thought to himself, as expected, it's easy to meet the king of hell but difficult to hide from the little ghosts. How was it? Did you enjoy your stay in 100 Herb Garden? Senior sister Wan is very good to me. Of course, if not, you wouldn't have encountered such trouble. Li Qingshan frowned. It was indeed that Shen Yushu. He's just a villain, not worth mentioning. I think your troubles are not over yet. Do you need my help? Li Qingshan asked curiously, why are you so concerned about me, senior brother? Do you know how many ascended disciples there are in Myriad Phenomenon sect? Many, a few thousand. Among them, you have the highest chance of becoming a successor disciple. Besides, Pai Yongqiu smiled. I don't want these small matters to affect you and make Letian too proud. Li Qingshan said seriously, that's true. Pai Yongqiu was stunned. Ha, you're not humble at all. Li Qingshan smiled. Since that's the case, why bother? I believe in senior brother's judgment. However, that Shen Yushu is from 100 Herb Garden after all, so you don't have to do anything for now. Millimeter, that's good too. Pai Yongqiu said with a smile, my judgment is not bad. Letian would not give 1,000 jade lots to just anyone. You've already met Spirit Venerable Gui Hai and chosen your heavenly book, right? Millimeter, I've already started cultivating it. It's called the Heavenly Book of Freedom. Sigh. It was indeed the Heavenly Book. Pai Yongqiu clapped his hands and sighed, the path of the great free sky devil? His gaze turned serious. Actually, I'm very curious. Why did the Spirit Supremacy summon you? This. Can I not answer? Pai Yongqiu smiled and said, that's fine too. I'll pick a good cave residence for you. Or, a very bad cave abode. I'm just kidding, but I'm really too curious. I simply can't figure it out. The Spirit Sovereign has always been engrossed in reading books, and doesn't like worldly affairs. Even I, the successor disciple, am rarely summoned. He had never even been summoned before. You've just entered the sect, and your cultivation isn't that high. What's so special about you? Pai Yongqiu circled around Li Qingshan as if trying to see into his heart. The successor disciples valued Li Qingshan because of Li Qingshan's performance at the Essence Magnet Mountain, as well as his chance of becoming a successor disciple. However, this reason alone wasn't enough for the Spirit Sovereign to summon him. Even if he really became a successor disciple, the Spirit Sovereign might not like him. Li Qingshan thought, Senior Brother Pai's interest in me probably has something to do with this. He thought for a moment, I can tell you, but the cave abode. Pai Yongqiu patted his chest and said, leave it to me. The Black Rabbit and the eldest senior sister in his sleeve also pricked up their ears. With the Spirit Sovereign status in the Myriad Phenomenon sect, even if he was a shut-in, his every move was enough to attract the attention of the successor disciples. Li Qingshan said, the Spirit Sovereign wants me to leave the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Pai Yongqiu was stunned. The Black Rabbit blinked. The eldest senior sister slowly swallowed her wine, extremely curious. Why? I'm not sure. I think he thinks I'm a threat to the Myriad Phenomenon sect. Pai Yongqiu swallowed. A threat? He even suspected that Li Qingshan was lying. However, even a lie wasn't that ridiculous. It was because it was so ridiculous that it was inexplicably believable. However, the Myriad Phenomenon sect was a colossus. How could a mere nascent soul cultivator threaten it? However, he didn't dare to question the Spirit Sovereign's judgment. In the entire Myriad Phenomenon sect, apart from the mysterious Qianshu elder, no one would dare to claim to be first in terms of divination if he claimed to be second. Then how did you stay? Since it's a threat, it's more reassuring to stay under one's nose. Li Qingshan gave a vague answer. After all, the real content of the conversation was too shocking. If not for an absolutely rational existence like the Spirit Sovereign, it would have sounded like a threat to an outsider. If you don't let me stay, I'll definitely come back for revenge in the future. Pai Yongqiu heard the insincerity in his words and looked at Li Qingshan meaningfully. Whether he was seen as a threat by the Spirit Sovereign or persuaded to change the Spirit Sovereign's mind, both were inconceivable. What kind of background and future did he have? I understand. I know what to choose. Choose what? Pai Yongqiu smiled. Which side to bet on, of course. Your bet with Letian has already spread among the core disciples. Letian set up a new bet and dragged many people into it. I'm one of them, He patted Li Qingshan's shoulder with a serious expression. That's a huge bet. Don't disappoint me. Li Qingshan was speechless. He cursed Le Tian in his heart. So I'm still that dark horse. Pai Yongqiu said, since he bet on you to win, it means he believes you can become a core disciple on par with us. How can he just treat you as a dark horse? Even a dark horse is better than an inferior horse that no one cares about, or even a stray dog by the side of the road. And don't worry, I'll help you. How? For example, a very good cave abode within the myriad phenomenon sect's laws. For example, the risks and opportunities in the heavenly book of freedom that you're cultivating now, Li Qingshan asked, what risks and opportunities? You're the first to cultivate the heavenly book of freedom, so there's no need to mention the risks. However, if you open up a dangerous path and record your cultivation experience and lessons to the heavens, you'll be able to obtain many contribution points and bookmarks. That's where the opportunities lie. Thank you for your guidance, senior brother. Li Qingshan came to a realization. To the myriad phenomena sect and spirit venerable C return, he was basically the first test subject of this heavenly writing. He possessed very high research value. Perhaps they would even organize the heavenly writing of freedom according to the results of their experiments, and future cultivators could learn from him. Perhaps they would even specially spend a bookmark to purchase the learning materials. It seemed like being a dark horse was not without its benefits, but the problem was, senior brother, are there many who bet on me losing? What do you think? Pai Yongqiu smiled. Only a lunatic would bet on him winning if they did not obtain first-hand materials. Even if they had seen Li Qingshan's performance in the Essence Magnet Mountain with their own eyes, they would only dare to place a bet after confirming it repeatedly. Li Qingshan asked again, then, will they deal with me like Shen Yushu? Pai Yongqiu said seriously, junior brother Li, what kind of people do you think we true disciples are? Just when Li Qingshan stopped worrying, he heard him continue. Even 100 Shen Yushu wouldn't be a match for you if any of the direct disciples wanted to deal with you, let alone a group of direct disciples. Li Qingshan felt a toothache. Pai Yongqiu smiled. But don't be afraid. I'll protect you. Li Qingshan said, I'm afraid you won't be able to fight against so many. Pai Yongqiu hugged Li Qingshan's shoulder affectionately. Don't worry. They think you'll definitely lose and won't be in a hurry to make a move. We'll win by surprise. Li Qingshan was even more speechless. It was unreliable to expect the enemy to be careless. Senior brother, something happened. At that moment, an inner disciple rushed over. He looked at Li Qingshan in surprise before bowing to Pai Yongqiu. What happened? Senior Ao Xian broke into the dragon pool cavern. Li Qingshan's expression changed and his pupils shrank. Could it be that what he feared was coming true? Pai Yongqiu glanced at Li Qingshan, but he did not seem surprised at all. Sure enough, that wretched dragon can't wait any longer. If our first senior brother Lin still doesn't return, his Shenming dwelling will belong to the myriad phenomena sect. Senior brother Lin failed? If reincarnation was so easy, the world would be full of immortals. The heavenly Tao has its own tribulations to break this wishful thinking. Pai Yongqiu seemed to be disdainful, but also seemed to be sighing. Li Qingshan had already regained his composure, and was even calmer than usual. He asked, Senior brother Pai, if the Shenming cavern is taken back, can I buy it? Chapter 14:13. You want to buy the Shenming cave mansion? Pai Yongqiu raised his eyebrows and looked at Li Qingshan with interest. That sounds like a good cave mansion. Li Qingshan also smiled. Pai Yongqiu said with a smile that was not a smile, yes, how can eldest Shixiang's cave mansion not be good? Not only is the spiritual energy rich and the scenery is magnificent, it also comes with eldest Shixiang's life savings and a true dragon mount. Li Qingshan said, that would probably require a lot of bookmarks. No, this cave mansion is not only beautiful but also cheap. Then why? Pai Yongqiu's smile disappeared. Do you want to slay a dragon? Li Qingshan shrugged his shoulders and did not answer. This Shenming cave mansion was like a dragon's nest in a knight's novel, but his goal was not the princess or treasure. He silently said in his heart, "If you dare to hurt even a hair on them, I will definitely kill you." Pai Yongqiu said, "What a young generation full of vigor. It makes me feel that time is tight and I need to cultivate more. Let's not talk nonsense. Here are a few suitable cave mansions. You can choose one. Senior Shixiang, please exchange it for bookmarks first." Li Qingshan thought about it. If the situation changed, he must get the right to slay a dragon. Pai Yongqiu was surprised. "What? You really want to buy the Xianming cave mansion? Although it is cheap, it is not something you can afford now." Li Qingshan thought about it and a light flashed in his mind. "I can pay in installments." Installments? Pai Yongqiu frowned and immediately understood the meaning of this word. He looked at Li Qingshan with a strange expression. Does the Sky Mansion department not have this service? I can make a down payment and then pay the debt monthly or annually, for example, 50 years. If I pay the debt, not only will the Sky Mansion department sell the cave mansion, but they will also get a sum of interest. If I can't pay the debt, they can take the cave mansion back. Anyway, the cave mansion can't run away, it is a sure profit. Pai Yongqiu pinched his chin and thought, "Very interesting idea. It reminds me of Letian. Did you think of this?" In his opinion, Li Qingshan still belonged to the school of battle, which was courageous and diligent, just like the two fake first senior brothers and first senior sisters. Although they were hard and easy to break, they had to face a tribulation that could truly break them. They would be able to break through everything and move forward bravely. They really didn't seem like people who could come up with such an idea. Li Qingshan continued, "If it is popularized, many cultivators will be able to afford cave abodes, and cave abodes will become even more in demand. If the price continues to rise, you can turn them all into house slaves, oh no, mansion slave. Who would dare to disobey the orders of the Department of Abundance?" Pai Yongqiu's eyes lit up. "Slave, that's too unpleasant to hear. But I like the last part. If it was just you, the Sanctum Sanctorum could still handle it. If he wanted to promote it to the entire Myriad Nature sect, it was necessary to have a large number of bookmarks as a foundation. It's a pity that the financial power of the Myriad Nature sect isn't in my hands, and I need Letien's cooperation. Why don't we go and meet him together?" Li Qingshan thought, "No wonder Letien could lend me 1,000 blue jade bookmarks and set up a 30-year bet. But the Myriad Nature sect unexpectedly gave the financial power to a gambler. It's crazy." Many inherited disciples also thought so, but this was the result of the spiritual venerable's deduction. "I think it's because for people like us, bookmarks are just a symbol of resources, and resources are just tools for cultivation. Only Letien would be so interested in accumulating bookmarks." Li Qingshan suddenly had a feeling that this sentence made sense. Because it was very common for ordinary people to pursue wealth, and it was very rare for cultivators at this level, as long as they could get enough resources for their cultivation. If Letien wasn't addicted to gambling, he wouldn't be interested in doing this. "But I'm not a noble inherited disciple like you. The more resources I have, the better. The mysterious underworld cave is a great opportunity. But senior brother Pai, I'm not friends with Letien." Pai Yongqiu was surprised. "I've only met one disciple who can say this so calmly. But don't worry, he respects his gambling friends more than his friends. If it's you, he will definitely give you the bookmarks." "Why? Do you know what his second hobby is?" "Loan sharks." Li Qingshan was speechless. The fact that the owner of a casino liked to loan sharks was so reasonable that he didn't know what to say. "In the last bet, you got 1,000 bookmarks for nothing. He must be very unhappy. Now that the opportunity is here, he won't let it go. Besides, this is another crazy bet." "Really?" Pai Yongqiu looked at Li Qingshan with a "I don't know what to say about you" expression, and said sincerely, "Junior brother, you probably won't get anything in the mysterious underworld cave." "Senior brother Pai, then why do you want me to gamble? Didn't you say you would protect me? If you can take down the mysterious underworld cave, your chances of winning the bet with Letien will greatly increase, which also means my chances of winning will greatly increase. If you can't, it'll just be a terrible debt." Pai Yongqiu smiled. "Don't worry, I'll help you push this debt to 30 years later. Li Qingshan understood, if he couldn't take down the mysterious underworld cave, even if he became a legacy disciple 30 years later, he would still have to pay Le Tien a large number of bookmarks, maybe even more than 2,000. So Le Tien would very likely accept this proposal. Pai Yongqiu, on the other hand, would definitely make a profit. Anyway, he couldn't afford the mortgage, and the cave still had to be taken back, so it didn't hurt him at all. However, it would increase his chances of winning in the bet with the other legacy disciples. Junior brother Li, aren't you angry? Pai Yongqiu asked. It was hard for him to say it so directly. Senior brother Pai, why would I be angry? 30 years later, he. Loan sharks, he. Pai Yongqiu praised. Good, I like this personality. Calling me senior brother Pai is too distant, just call me Pai Pai from now on. The corner of Li Qingshan's eye twitched. Pai Yongqiu laughed, I'm just joking. He grabbed Li Qingshan's shoulder, turned around, and arrived at the archway of Chaotic Place. All that was left was the disciple who had come to report his work. He muttered to himself, just what is this Li Qingshan's background? Ao Xian slowly turned around, staring at Luo Hu Xiaoming in the endless darkness. Rahu celestial race. Who are you? Luo Hu Xiaoming said proudly, you don't deserve to know my name. Good, very good. I haven't felt such pain in a long time, I'll let you know, this is not the Azura realm. Ao Xian's body shrunk, turning into a handsome man with golden eyes, black clothes, and a dignified appearance. He gently touched his cheek, and two dazzling golden lights shot out from his eyes, staring at Luo Hu Xiaoming's endless dark eyes. Light and shadow faced each other, light and dark intertwined, the air twisted and exploded, creating a series of explosions, and strong winds surged like waves. Luo Hu Xiaoming's long hair fluttered in the wind, his hands spread out into the endless darkness. Almost at the same time, the golden eyes dragon broke through the air in a flash, dragging a golden light, and punched. Jiyu Yangying unfurled her wings and soared through the endless sky and land of the human realm. She was no longer constrained by the narrowness of the 9 provinces. The freedom to her heart's content overwhelmed all fear and worry. Everyone gazed at her figure from afar. Suddenly, she looked back, only to see darkness envelop their figures at the same time. An indescribable pride rushed out of her heart. Evil dragon, if you dare to kill him, I will kill 500 true dragons, including you. This sentence was like a sharp arrow, piercing through the endless void and even the darkness, shooting into Ao Xian's consciousness, and his expression changed slightly. Little and blinked and looked at Jiyu Yangying strangely. Jiyu Yangying blushed slightly, and smiled. Why, only men like them are allowed to act like heroes, but I'm not allowed to boast. Little and said, yes. Jiyu Yangying looked at the sky, and no longer looked back. Since he was the Kuanping, there was no need for Qingshan to do anything. After some time, several golden lights sliced through the darkness, but they were torn apart by the golden dragon claws, falling from the sky, and merged into the darkness. Ao Xian stood under the starry sky, his black clothes were slightly damaged, and he spat out a dragon tooth, holding it tightly in his hand, and the other turned into a ferocious dragon claw, grabbing Luo Hu Xiaoming. He looked at the direction where the Kuanping disappeared for a long time, thinking about something, and flew down after a while. Boom! The stone door was broken into pieces, and Ao Xian retracted his fist, breaking into the dragon pool cave, and silently patrolling the area. There was no one inside, the altar had been destroyed by the divine punishment, and there was no sign of the climbing vine. Why would a Rahu god clan appear in the 9 states? And with the inheritor of the great sage of chaotic heavens, and the exquisite white bones on the back of the Kuanping, could it be the inheritor of the white bone bodhisattva? All these clues contained a message that made him shudder. Could it be that a great change was about to happen again? No, it can't be. The great sages were all suppressed. He did not want to think any more, and looked at the Rahu in his hand, feeling that it was a bit tricky. Chapter 14:14. This kid doesn't need me to look after him. It's a bit troublesome for me to deal with him now. The eldest martial sister muttered unhappily. This guy, who was summoned twice by spirit sage Gui Hai and valued by 2 direct disciples, was actually Letien's gambling friend. If she wanted to kill him, Letien would probably be the first to disagree. If Li Qingshan died, who would collect his gambling debts from? It would be the same as losing 1,000 green jade lots for nothing. Not to mention that Ruan Yaozhu wouldn't forgive her for at least 100 years. Spirit Sage Gui Hai would know that she killed her fellow disciples, and Pai Yongqiu would definitely pull out that damned fake eldest martial brother. Even if she was the true eldest martial sister, she couldn't do whatever she wanted to this extent. A little nascent soul cultivator with no background, who had just entered the myriad phenomenon sect, had unknowingly become entangled with so many connections. It looked like he was in a dangerous situation, but no one could touch him. This kind of situation had never happened before. Was it luck? No, it was the result of risking her life. She wasn't unfamiliar with this path. As long as the hardships weren't enough to break her edge, she could cut through everything and move forward bravely. She stretched her arms, stretching her strong body like a cheetah, and faintly said, I really want to kill people. It's good to watch people get killed, and it would be best if someone came to kill me. Got it. She jumped up and nimbly walked to the door, kicking it open. Sunlight poured into the room. Under the blood-red sky, she stood on a high balcony. Beneath her feet was a precipitous cliff, and in front of her was a vast and spacious arena. Countless people were fighting and killing each other. The light of magic treasures and the radiance of spells rose and fell one after another. But it made her lose interest. The main thing here was training, not fighting. If someone died, it would be her responsibility. The Myriad Phenomenon sect wasn't a demonic sect that raised poisonous insects. But there was one exception, and that was duels. When the conflict between fellow disciples was too big to be resolved, forcefully suppressing it would only cause more internal friction, so the most primitive method was used to solve it. Her expression was slightly cold. Li Qingshan, at this point, I really have to face the threat you pose to Yaozhu. At the same time, in Chaotic Life Square, when Pai Yongqiu stated his intentions, Letien closed his eyes and swirled his wine glass in thought. Li Qingshan sniffed and pretended not to care as he picked up the exquisite golden wine pot on the table. He poured himself a cup and drank it in one gulp. A look of surprise flashed in his eyes. This was much better than the wine he bought. Because of that damned rabbit, he hadn't had his fill at all. His appetite had just been whetted. Then he poured another glass, a second glass, a third glass. The capacity of this wine pot was definitely not smaller than his iron gourd. Unfortunately, it was a buffet. They could only eat, not bring. He could only seize the time to drink a few more cups of wine. The golden-haired beauty standing behind Letien couldn't help but glare at Li Qingshan fiercely. A disciple who had just arrived actually had no sense of propriety. If he wasn't brought here by Pai Yongqiu, she would have thrown him out immediately. Li Qingshan acted as if there was no one else around him and was intoxicated by the wine. Letien's right eye opened a slit and looked at Li Qingshan from the corner of his eye. What you mean is that you still want to borrow a sum of money from me to help you buy the profound underworld cave. So that you can speed up your cultivation? Li Qingshan raised his cup in a toast. Don't worry. Maybe I'll be eaten by a dragon. That way, you can win without a fight. Letien said, then who's going to pay my gambling debt? Li Qingshan spread his hands with an expression that said, how would I know? Then I'll lose 1,000 green jade lots when I win one round. Li Qingshan gulped down a mouthful of wine. So you're blaming me now? Letien was so angry that he laughed. He regretted betting with this kid in the first place. If he wanted to win back the 2,000 green jade lots, he had to at least guarantee that Ao Xian could repay the debt. In other words, he had to protect Ao Xian from being killed by someone. Pai Yongqiu laughed. If Ao Xian wants to take over the profound underworld cave, he definitely won't kill a myriad appearance sect disciple. Moreover, I've never heard of him being interested in human flesh. I can give it a try. Letien also stopped smiling. This was not just about one or two bets, but a major event that affected the entire myriad appearance sect. Pai Yongqiu raised his cup. Then let the people below discuss it. Letien looked at the empty wine cup and sighed. Hey, Refill my cup. Li Qingshan quickly refilled Letien's cup. Hehe, the wine is not bad. He refilled his cup again and clinked it with his two senior brothers. Just as he was about to finish it, his left hand suddenly trembled and he almost spilled the wine. He felt that his wrist had been bitten. Needless to say, it was that damned rabbit again. However, Li Qingshan was in a good mood. It was not because he had gotten the mortgage, but because Little and the others did not seem to be in mortal danger. Otherwise, the three of them were closely related to him. If something happened to them, he would have a strong sense of danger. Since he didn't sense anything, it meant that he had passed this trial, which made him heave a huge sigh of relief. Forget it. Since you're my drinking buddy, I'll treat you to another cup. Just one cup. This is not my cup of wine. Li Qingshan sent a telepathic message to Ao Xian as he stuffed the wine cup into his sleeve. Sure enough, Ao Xian drank it all in one go. All right, now you're satisfied. If you keep messing around, I won't forgive you. I'll skin you alive. Letian and Pai Yongqiu looked at each other, not knowing what he was doing. Li Qingshan poured another cup for himself. Just as he was about to put it into his mouth, he felt another sharp pain in his wrist. This time, it was more intense than before. The wine spilled all over his face. His eyes twitched. Finally, he could not take it anymore. He pulled the black rabbit out of his sleeve and said angrily, "That's enough." Letian and Pai Yongqiu were shocked. They suspected that they were seeing things. The three-legged golden toad lying in the corner of the room subconsciously shrank back. Pai Yongqiu said, "Junior brother, this is?" "Ah, sorry to make senior brother laugh. I picked this up on the road. I was about to bring it back as a dish." Before he finished speaking, a pair of rabbit legs kicked his face. Boom. Li Qingshan smashed through the wall and flew across the sky of Wanxiang City. He crashed through several buildings and landed heavily on the ground. The black rabbit hugged the falling wine pot and gently jumped onto the table. He directly drank the wine from the pot and drank it all. It was treating Letian and Pai Yongqiu like they were nothing. Letian and Pai Yongqiu were convinced. However, they were even more puzzled. How could eldest senior sister's black fur raw be in this kid's sleeve? The wind howled. Li Qingshan flew through the air and returned to the room. He pointed at the black rabbit and shouted, "What are you?" Pai Yongqiu said, Junior brother, this is eldest senior sister's black fur sky-gazing raw." "What bullshit, eldest senior sister?" Letian was shocked too. He gave Li Qingshan a thumbs up from the bottom of his heart. "The one behind you." Chapter 14:16. A terrifying aura drowned him like a raging wave. It wasn't just power, but also a bloody killing intent. He was like a small boat in a storm, without any power to resist. Li Qingshan looked at this wild woman who came out of nowhere, and was stunned. A distant memory came rushing back, that familiar name, the woman he once wanted to marry. Chao Tianjiao thought he was scared silly, and thought disdainfully, I only revealed a little bit of my aura, it's nothing much. These smelly men all pretend to be people, but when it comes to a disaster, not many of them are decent. No, it's not the same, it's just that their auras are similar. Li Qingshan sighed in his heart. Since he came this far, if he took a step back now, he would be letting down all of her sincerity. Under Chao Tianjiao's surprised gaze, he grinned, and said word by word, "What?" "Dog." The relaxed atmosphere suddenly became tense. With every word he spat out, Chao Tianjiao's aura inconceivably rose again. Letian interrupted, and covered Li Qingshan's mouth. "Shijie, why are you here?" He glared at Li Qingshan. "Speak less, or you'll die." Chao Tianjiao angrily roared, "Let go of me, let him finish." Pai Yongqiu rolled his eyes, and smiled. "Shijie, how are you going to explain this to Wan Shamai?" Black-haired who wouldn't appear in Li Qingshan's sleeve for no reason, it must have been ordered by Chao Tianjiao, and in the entire Wen Xiong sect, there weren't many people who could order her around, and coincidentally, Wan Yarozhu was one of them. Hearing this, Chao Tianjiao took a deep breath, and slowly let go of Li Qingshan's sleeve. "Brat, I've arranged a duel for you. It can't be with you, right? Then I'll turn it down." Li Qingshan tidied up his clothes emotionlessly. HMPH, coward. With a serious expression, Li Qingshan cupped his fists and said, "Senior sister, you are not inferior to men. You are heroic and brave. You are my role model. When I get back, I'll find a foundation establishment cultivator and teach him a lesson. I'll let him have a taste of senior sister Wn Xiong's might." Le Tian and Pai Yongqiu could not help but smile. Chao Tianjiao widened her eyes and took a step forward. She was about to go berserk. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed, and the black rabbit landed on her head. The three-petaled mouth wriggled as if it was trying to say something. Chao Tianjiao restrained her anger. "Li Qingshan, Chen Yushu is waiting for you at the Black Tortoise Arena to fight to the death with you. Do you dare to come?" This battle was also very unfair. Li Qingshan thought he would refuse again, but Li Qingshan said in surprise, "He still dares to come?" Chao Tianjiao was rendered speechless. Was this something a nascent soul cultivator should say to a deification cultivator? "All right. Then come. You're just relying on an Azura divine weapon. I'll teach you a lesson later." With a boom, she tore through the air and left as suddenly as she came. Li Qingshan asked in bafflement, "This is the senior sister of Wn Xiong sect?" Pai Yongqiu sighed, "Yes and no. What do you mean? Whether it's senior brother or senior sister, there will always be only one Wan Xiong sect. They stand at the top of all disciples. Even direct disciples have to listen to their orders. This is because the two sect masters often follow the grand sect master to walk the 9 heavens. Spirit Venerable Gui Hai has never cared about worldly affairs. Most of the time, senior brother or senior sister is the actual sect master of the entire Wan Xiong sect. They are elected by all the disciples in the sect. They are called the number 1 disciple every 100 years. This generation is senior brother Lin Xian. Li Qingshan seemed to understand something. To the two human immortal sect masters, their own cultivation was definitely the most important. They would not waste time dealing with these trivial matters. The entire Wan Xiong sect was in an autonomous state with direct disciples as the core. Someone had to manage it. However, although senior brother held great power, his cultivation was limited. He naturally did not have the authority of the sect master. Furthermore, he had to rotate. Pai Yongqiu said, "That's right. However, senior brother Lin Xian has reincarnated and hasn't reached the 100-year mark. This position is empty. Currently, there are 2 direct disciples who have the highest hopes of inheriting this position. Basically, no other direct disciples can compete with them. Therefore, they are now called senior brother and senior sister. It seems very powerful. Let's put it this way. In a head-on battle, no direct disciple is a match for them." Le Tian laughed, "Or rather, if the 2 of them join forces, all the other direct disciples combined won't be a match for them. Of course, it's impossible for them to join forces." Li Qingshan was also shocked. No wonder he felt such a strong sense of oppression. This was the human emperor of human emperors. He was not someone that Chuo Long could compare to. How did I offend her? Probably because junior sister Wan asked her to look after you. She was the one who personally brought junior sister Wan to Wan Xiong sect. Li Qingshan immediately understood. He sighed, "You can't blame others. It's all because of your great charm." Le Tian smiled, "Since you don't care about your life or face, you will definitely become a great person. Thank you for the compliment. That Shen Yushu has long become a nascent soul or soul formation cultivator. He is only 1 step away from passing the 5th heavenly tribulation. He is one of the most promising disciples in the sect to become a direct disciple. I'm afraid you're not his match. I'm really worried about my bet. Just admit defeat." This was the most natural judgment in the cultivation world. Even if there was a difference in cultivation techniques and whether one was good at fighting, the difference of a whole realm was a huge gap that was absolutely difficult to make up for. Moreover, the higher the realm, the greater the gap. Even though he had seen Li Qingshan's performance in the Yuan Ci mountain, he did not have any hope. Li Qingshan smiled, "Do you want to make a bet?" "Of course, I bet that you will win." Li Qingshan was stunned. "Hihi, You're my dark horse. Shun Yushu stood in the middle of a large swamp, still somewhat unable to believe his luck. This was practically the most suitable place in the Black Tortoise Arena to circulate the heavenly book of nature and cast spells. Moreover, he could openly kill his enemies here. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he looked at Li Qingshan in the distance. Although he did not understand why his senior sister had arranged this, he would absolutely not let go of this opportunity. At such a distance, that brat would no longer have any chance to sneak attack him. He would attack with all his strength right from the start and strangle him in the grass and trees. Chao Tianjiao, Pai Yongqiu, and Le Tian stood on a cliff watching the battle from afar. Le Tian smiled and said something to Chao Tianjiao. Chao Tianjiao immediately agreed and began a new round of bets. Pai Yongqiu hesitated at the side and decided not to provoke this tigress. It was not fun to be hated by her. With a relaxed expression, Li Qingshan suddenly faced the cliff and asked in a clear voice, "Everyone, do you know what it means to be strong?" Although everyone's eyes were only on Chao Tianjiao sneered, "What is strong?" Chapter 14-17. Chao Tianjiao's eyes brightened as she muttered, "When the strong are angry, they draw their swords against the stronger ones. When the weak are angry, they draw their swords against the weaker ones." Well said. Put down the sword. Ah! Li Qingshan was stunned. Chao Tianjiao's face was full of ridicule. To use this kind of weapon in a fight between fellow disciples, could it be that you want to kill someone? Li Qingshan rolled his eyes, "But you said it was a life and death duel." "Did I say that?" Chao Tianjiao looked left and right at Le Tian and Pai Yongqiu. They cooperated and said, "No." Chao Tianjiao stepped on the railing and stared at Li Qingshan. "Brat, this is my territory, the rules are set by me. I want to see if you still dare to be so arrogant without someone to rely on." "Fine." Li Qingshan put away his sword and turned to face Shun Yushu, asking in a clear voice, "Does everyone know what it means to be a strong person?" Shun Yushu felt some regret in his heart that he could not kill Li Qingshan here, but thinking that if he killed Li Qingshan, it would definitely anger Wan Yarozhu, so he was not in a hurry. Wait until he becomes a true disciple. A disciple who has ascended the hall will be at his mercy. He sneered, "Li Qingshan, don't be so savage, the loser will have to leave 100 Herb Garden forever." Li Qingshan ignored him and raised his right arm without turning his head, clenching his iron fist. When the strong are angry, they swing their fists at the stronger ones. When the weak are angry, they swing their fists at the weaker ones. Le Tian laughed. Pai Yongqiu looked up at the sky, the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Chao Tianjiao angrily rebuked, "Are you done?" Li Qingshan laughed, "I'm afraid you won't even be able to use your hands later. But that doesn't matter, this kind of trash, even if he can't use his hands, I will still smash him to death." Shun Yushu gnashed his teeth and said, "You're courting death." Pointing his finger downwards, he drew, prison drawing. One after another, towering trees rose from the ground, twisting and intertwining like dragons and snakes, wrapping around Shun Yushu. The grayish-brown tree bark shone with a metallic luster. It was like an unbreakable steel fortress, and it was still growing, becoming incomparably strong as it occupied the great swamp. This was originally a spell to trap the enemy, but he used it to protect himself. With the experience of the previous failure, he had to make sure nothing went wrong this time. He didn't want to reveal any flaws and establish himself in an invincible position. Anyone who wanted to touch him would first have to destroy this iron fortress, but he could constantly urge the giant tree to grow. Even a human emperor with a young spirit would have to put in a lot of effort if he couldn't use magic treasures. This Chen Yushu is really a coward. Chao Tianjiao furrowed her brows. To be so cautious when dealing with a nascent soul cultivator, even she felt ashamed. It was a stark contrast to Li Qingshan's arrogance. But she also felt relieved, dispelling that trace of uneasiness. Alas, this isn't good. Pai Yongqiu sighed. If he had that Azura divine weapon, it would be better, but now even he couldn't figure out how Li Qingshan could break through Shun Yushu's defense. Glancing at Le Tian, he said, "I really don't know where you get the confidence to bet with me." Le Tian stared at Li Qingshan, his eyes shining. "I don't have confidence, I just believe in him." Come, my dark horse, let me see how you can win. Chao Tianjiao unhappily discovered that there was a trace of uncertainty in his heart. Could it be that he can really win? No. Impossible, even I couldn't solve this kind of situation back then. Ruan Yarozhu cultivated the natural heavenly book. So she understood it very well. To a certain extent, this heavenly book could actually restrain people with strong physiques like her. The plants grew endlessly and contained endless power of nature. It was not only a solid defense, but also a natural trap that combined defense with offense. If Li Qingshan wanted to get close to Shen Yushu, he would be walking into a trap. Instead, he would be walking into a trap and would definitely lose. So Li Qingshan didn't move, stood with his hands crossed, and said mockingly, "So you are so afraid of me, then I will let you have 3 moves. This is the first move, you might as well put in a bit more effort." Chao Tianjiao frowned. What does he want to do? Why not take advantage of the weak defense to fight for that slim chance of victory? And he even said let you have 3 moves. Does he really not want to win? If it was a real life and death battle, this kind of defense was very stupid. As long as Li Qingshan didn't care, then Shen Yushu would really become a real prison. But this was a duel, and the battlefield was just this swamp. The most frightening thing about the natural heavenly book was, as long as there was enough time to use spells to stimulate the plants, they would become stronger and stronger, and there were countless changes. Then let me have it. Shen Yushu sneered, and indeed continued to strengthen the defense. After a full quarter of an hour, the steel fortress expanded several times, occupying 1/10 of the swamp area. And as expected, Li Qingshan stood in place and watched, not even blinking. This kind of duel was extremely rare in the Black Tortoise arena. Chao Tianjiao said, a coward, an idiot." Shen Yushu was completely prepared, and without any nonsense, he shouted, "Yin Soul Projection." The Yin Soul soared into the sky, its dark green eyes staring at Li Qingshan, opened its arms, and slowly raised its palms. The calm surface of the swamp suddenly boiled, and giant trees grew and rolled in the muddy water, like thousands of giant snakes wriggling, filling the entire swamp. Determined not to give Li Qingshan any chance, he used his yin soul cultivation to suppress him. Displaying the strongest point of the natural heavenly book, he forced Li Qingshan into a desperate situation step by step, and at the same time enjoyed his expression of despair. But to his disappointment, Li Qingshan said without a change in expression, "Second move." "Good, very good." Shen Yushu was so angry that he laughed, and continued to activate the natural heavenly book, growing giant trees one after another. In a moment, the swamp turned into a primitive forest, as if it had grown for 10,000 years, and the crisscrossing branches blocked off the entire sky. Chao Tianjiao said, "There's no need to look anymore, he's definitely going to lose. TSK, I thought you had some ability, so it's just a bluff." Le Tien slapped the railing and shouted fanatically, "No, my dark horse will not lose." Shen Yushu shouted angrily, "Die." The Yin Soul shot out countless rays of dark green light, and in an instant, all his resentment and anger exploded. The boundless giant trees all fell towards Li Qingshan, as if a landslide or a tsunami, drowning him in an instant. Like a giant net that suddenly tightened, layer by layer tightly wrapped around him, the huge force it contained made his bones creak. If not for the incomparably strong body of the gods and devils, he would have been crushed into fine powder. Li Qingshan shouted in panic, I can't take it anymore." Chao Tianjiao could not bear to watch, and turned her head away. Even though he won the bet, he was not happy. It was really too shameful. How could there be such a shameless man? Thinking of the little unease she felt just now, she felt even more shameful. She was actually almost fooled by this bastard. She really wanted to kill him. But forget it, she just needed to teach him a lesson. For this kind of trash, there was no need to anger the bamboo. She was about to intervene and save him. Chapter 14:18. However, Li Qingshan was not Shen Yushu's match, and he was well aware of it. If they were to engage in a bloody battle in the wilderness, the one who would survive would definitely be him. However, in this Black Tortoise arena, all the advantages that were beneficial to him were stripped away. Firstly, under the gazes of the 3 direct disciples, he was unable to use his innate divine ability. This was the human path and not the demonic beast path. Demons could only exist as mounts, and even Spirit Venerable Gui Hai was no exception. Furthermore, there was no room for maneuver here, and most of his combat experience became useless. Secondly, Shen Yushu had learned his lesson from last time, and was fully prepared. He could no longer scheme against an unprepared opponent. It was impossible for him to tear apart the steel fortress formed by the giant tree with just his strong physique. The Chilean transformation could control plants to a certain extent, but it definitely did not include the spells cast by the enemy, at least not yet. In the end, that woman Chao Tianjiao was indeed a seasoned veteran. Taking away his doomsday wildflower saber was like pulling out the firewood from under the cauldron. She had pulled out his claws and teeth, forcing him into an extremely awkward situation. If he could still easily defeat a yin spirit cultivator who was about to cross the 5th heavenly tribulation in such a disadvantageous situation, then the cultivation path did not matter about the difference in realms. Yes, Chao Tianjiao's prediction was right. The so-called letting you make 3 moves was just a bluff. Because it was useless to reason with her. Just as she said, this was her territory, and she could suppress and bully you. What would you do? Panicking out of fear? Feel indignant? Don't joke around. Fear and anger would only cause you to lose faster and more miserably. Therefore, he might as well scare his opponent first, stall for some time, and then find a countermeasure. A thought flashed in his mind. Other than the 9 transformations of demons and gods, I seem to have a heavenly book of freedom. When Shen Yushu shouted yin spirit leaving body, he silently chanted at the same time, nascent soul leaving body. When Shen Yushu's yin spirit flew into the sky, a lively little Li Qingshan burrowed into the ground beneath his feet. When Li Qingshan said the words "it's my turn," he drilled into Shen Yushu's corporeal body. Chen Yushu's heart was filled with ruthlessness as he urged the giant tree with all his strength. He wanted to strangle Li Qingshan to death. Even if I can't kill you, I can destroy your body. Leaving behind a nascent soul is enough. With a loud bang, thousands of giant trees trembled violently, their branches and leaves withered and fell. The nascent soul contained a destructive power that directly turned his body, which was not very strong, into ashes. What did you do? Shen Yushu's expression changed greatly. In that instant, it was as if the sky had collapsed and the earth had sunk in. He had lost control of everything and a myriad of emotions uncontrollably flowed out. His yin spirit began to twist and contort. Chao Tianjiao's eyes widened in shock. Pai Yongqiu said in astonishment, Shen Yushu's corporeal body was destroyed, but how did he do it? Le Tian said, my dark horse is omnipotent. You have to protect your corporeal body well. Li Qingshan took the opportunity to break free from the giant tree and used his pinky to pick his ear. The nascent soul is really useful, I don't even need to use my fists. Chao Tianjiao said, impossible, after the nascent soul leaves the body, how can he still control the corporeal body? The nascent soul was very fragile. No nascent soul cultivator would easily let the nascent soul leave the body. Moreover, after leaving the body, the corporeal body would lose control. What was even more inconceivable was Shen Yushu's prison of drawing ground did not only rely on the sturdiness of the wood, it was similar to a formation barrier. Even a yin spirit would not be able to easily break through it. Not to mention a mere nascent soul. Pai Yongqiu muttered, he is the first person to cultivate the unfettered heavenly book. There must be a mystery that we don't know about. He also had some doubts in his heart. Although every scroll of the unfettered heavenly book was mysterious and profound, he was only a nascent soul cultivator. However, Li Qingshan was not an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. Even if his nascent soul was destroyed, he could still run and jump. Those who cultivated the unfettered heavenly tome were good at escaping techniques. Not only did those huge trees not become an obstacle, but they also became the medium for nascent soul to cast the wood escape art. He followed the vines to find the melon, and went straight to the root of the problem. Moreover, he had never really learned any escape techniques. Everything was almost instinctive. This was the result of the nascent soul's tempering in the small world within its body, as the Chilean transformation was currently its shortcoming. Therefore, the wood escape was not very strong. It took a lot of time to travel through the giant trees. He would probably be able to do it in a short while. So he deliberately angered Shen Yushu, causing his yin spirit to leave his body. What a cunning kid! A trace of admiration flashed in Chao Tianjiao's eyes. This kind of method was simply putting one's life on the line, a grand gamble of not succeeding or dying for a righteous cause. However, he actually behaved so calmly. This kind of courage was really extraordinary. In fact, she still underestimated Li Qingshan. Even if Shen Yushu did not leave his body with his yin spirit, Li Qingshan could still send his nascent soul over and directly self-destruct. However, that would be harming the enemy by 1,000 and harming himself by 800. Unless it was absolutely necessary, it was better not to do so. Shen Yushu's yin spirit flew back to the center of the iron fortress. It was empty, not even a drop of blood was left behind. In a split second, he felt as if his heart had died, and the light of his yin spirit became dim. The destruction of the corporeal body was a great loss to a cultivator. The lower the cultivation, the more serious it was. He was in the crucial period of preparing to cross the 5 heavenly tribulations. Now it was all over. At least another 100 years would be needed to make up for it. By that time, perhaps he would have missed the opportunity. Li Qingshan, I will kill you. Shen Yushu let out a hysterical roar. His yin spirit shone brightly. Under the distortion of his emotions, his voice and face were already close to inhuman. Tens of thousands of giant trees madly danced, and like a raging sea, they smashed towards Li Qingshan. Li Qingshan also felt that it was somewhat troublesome. A hysterical enemy might not be scary, but it was very troublesome. Wanting to completely destroy Shen Yushu's yin spirit was not that easy. Moreover, he also had to consider Ruan Yaozhu's feelings. She probably did not want to see him kill someone. Moreover, the person he killed was a familiar junior brother from the same sect. At this time, a figure swept past him. The ending wildflower saber flew up and fell into that figure's hand. The saber light flashed and cut apart tens of thousands of giant trees. Wood shavings swirled in the air like a snowstorm. Li Qingshan stood in the center of the snowstorm. He felt the wind of the saber whizzing past. Every saber was difficult for him to resist. Enough, victory and defeat have been decided. The scene returned to silence. Li Qingshan looked at Chao Tianjiao's proud and straight back. This was the power of Wn Xiong sect's eldest senior sister. Chao Tianjiao's gaze was like a bucket of cold water being poured over his head. Shen Yushu's distorted and furious yin spirit recovered a trace of clarity. He said full of unwillingness, "Eldest senior sister, I haven't lost yet." Chao Tianjiao said, "According to the rules of the duel, if your physical body is destroyed, you lose. Don't you hurry up and calm your mind. Do you want to become a ghost?" Turning around, she handed the ending wildflower saber to Li Qingshan. "You win, the saber is not bad." "Thank you. You shouldn't stay in the 100 herb garden. I will give you a more suitable job and guarantee that you will get more contribution points and bookmarks. In short, I will protect you." Li Qingshan was about to open his mouth to reply when she interrupted. "Think carefully, this is not a suggestion. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.